channel. And now some chilled discussion after the week's angst, with the Doctor Who Detox Hour, or two.
Welcome to our mix of Doctor Who news and nostalgia. We try and get the blend right on Fridays because we want the detox for the weekend. Of course we do. RTD doing a moonlit flit to the Channel 4. What's going on there? Jane Tranter saying, please come back. Oh, could he be leaving? Season 12, it's 50, isn't it? We need to have a nice little reflection on that. There's lots of bits of news. David Tennant doing the BAFTAs, various things. We're tiptoeing to 20 years of New Who, so we thought it was a good point to actually have a little look at some of those moments as well. And because it's Valentine's Day, whether you feel loved or not, you're loved here, and join the gang, and we will talk about now and again throughout the programme why we love Doctor Who. So feel a love. It's not going to be a blast just to kind of, talk about New Who or RTD. We do a lot of shows on that. There'll be a bit of that today, but a lot more loving. And to do that, I'll have my panel on. First of all, I will just remind you of our usual housekeeping rules. Please subscribe or repost or tell a friend, one friend. If everyone does that, we might get somewhere. And of course, DM me on X, DM me, email me on sensitivity@gmail.com. Do you want to be a panelist? Have you got ideas of topics? I'm always looking for topics. Come on board. So, please do join us. Feel the love. So here we go. Let's. Where is he? We'll go to Sydney first. Hiya, Dan.
Hey, Brendan. Hello, everyone.
There you go. Bouquet of flowers from Shooty. There you go.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Do you know? I think you can get a photograph of Shooty doing absolutely everything. Everything. He seems to be real, he models everything. Sink plungers, the lot.
No, I look at this and go, is it AI?
Don't even go there with AI. God, we'll be doomed. I better get our next colleague on, but we'll go down to Tassie. Our Tasmanian devil himself. He is Dwayne. Hello.
G'day. How's it going? Good to see you both.
Well, of course.
And everyone in the chat, g'day. That rose looks like it's trying to get away.
Oh, well, Rose was trying to get away. She went to an alternative universe. I mean, well, there's the feel of love of the New Who team. They were all at a convention recently. There they all are. Donna, Martha, Clara, Rose. Oh, Yaz. Don't forget Yaz. I don't know. It doesn't make me feel a love, though, that one. Not as much. It doesn't.
I always laugh with Mandip Gill. She always comes across as so warm and friendly outside of Doctor Who. And then the minute she turns into Yaz, it's like just...
a bit of a misery guts, isn't she?
Yeah. Just frumpy.
Well, she was the police officer who never did any police work.
Yes.
I don't know. I give up on that one. Well, you could... I hope you give your better halves a lovely gift today. And look at that lovely... I'm sorry, I should have shown you earlier. Look at this beautiful clock that you could have given your loved one. Would that have gone down well? It looks like the play school clock.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I love that, actually. I would love one of those.
Yeah, I mean, it looks as though... Is it Capaldi coming out as a cuckoo? I mean, you've got the Ood, the Zygons, the Cybermen who twirl around. It is like the play school clock thing that used to go around. And then two Daleks on the pendulum.
Wow. What do you reckon that'd be worth if that's legit? Well, if it... that'd be worth a fortune.
Well, Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it doesn't do cuckoo, but it might do a kind of something to do with Doctor Who sound. It might be. I wonder what that could be. Instead of cuckoo, what could you hear?
Exterminate.
I was thinking more of the Time Rotor. So, yeah, there's that possibility. Or maybe Valentine's Day was a dud for you, and all you did was the house chores and did your cleaning and all the rest of it there. A lot of cleaning of inside of Daleks, because they're very messy squids, aren't they? I mean, I don't know where their toileting system goes in Daleks, do you?
It's appropriate for a Friday. That Dark's getting a detox.
Of course, and I do have my toxic alarm for some of our classmates in the thread who, now and again like to get us going toxic when they think we've gone too calm. There he is, John Pertwee doing his chores. You see, if you don't feel a love, just get on with making a pie, making a stew, making a cup of tea. Oh, I do miss the classic Doctors. I really do. I just see any picture of them and you think, oh, they were just so showbiz. They were so on it, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I've been revisiting this week, so
let's have a look.
he's very very much on my mind at the moment.
oh yeah.
Yes, I think you said season 8. I know we're all waiting for season 7 in a month's time. I know you're going to wait longer, aren't you? I know it. I know. But yeah.
No, I'm not.
No, I'm ordering it from the UK. So yeah,
okay.
Already did.
Oh well, you've got a back-to-back Pertwee coming. Now on this Valentine's Day when we're trying to feel a love of Doctor Who and all the rest of it. Oh look! I just love this shot. I'll go bigger. I mean, look at that shot of every type of TARDIS and even TARDISes we haven't seen. Oh, and you've got Patrick Troughton's Doctor looking around. I don't know. Is that from a comic strip? It looks very comic strip, doesn't it? But gosh. Absolutely love that.
Don't forget to visit our upper floor. Who's up there? Is that Tennant and Capaldi? Tom Baker right at the other end, is it? In his burgundy jacket? Well, what is that? What is that?
Yeah, it looks
Or
like
is
a
it
little
fire hydrant.
It's a fire hydrant. But yeah, I really did like that shot. I thought, TARDISes. I've got loads over there. I'm sure you have as well. We've got our TARDISes everywhere.
Yeah, but there's something about this one that when I see it out of the corner of my eye, it is something about this 80s one that just when I see it, it just feels like I get an actual visceral reaction to it. Whereas I've got other ones there and it doesn't do it for me.
I'm looking over there now, and I've got the Peter Davison one with the cricket stumps, as you know. I've got the Chase one. I think it's the Chase where the windows go in, and it's very weathered, lovely.
Yeah, that one up there doesn't do anything for me. The one on the top.
Yeah, I know what you mean. 2 colorized shots just to get us warmed up, and then we're off and running with our first Why We Love Doctor Who segment. This is the Chase again. There's the TARDIS. If you want a TARDIS shot, there it is in color.
I was talking to someone about the Chase the other day because he happened to be watching the Web Planet, and Rosalind de Winter, the woman who does all the insect movements in the Web Planet.
Yeah,
she actually plays the ghostly ghoul in the haunted house in the Chase. Same woman.
See, small world. You see, use them again and again.
All this important trivia that us Doctor Who fans obsess ourselves with
because we love Doctor Who. It's only worth it for that reason on Valentine's Day. So I might as well get us going, lads. Not with that sort of love. No. That's the shooty Doctor and his joy to the world. No, what I meant is this one. Reasons why you do love Doctor Who. So your starter for 10, lads. Dan, why do you love Doctor Who? Why have you stuck with it through thick and thin?
Well, it's been there for me pretty much my whole life. So yeah, it's just I've never not had Doctor Who around.
I mean, I know. Is it just because it's a fixture from your life, or
no? I mean, it is. It has been around, but I think it's that comfort, I guess, that it's not just nostalgia. It is like today I was in preparation for season 12 retro. I was watching Ark in Space,
Oh, yeah.
and it's just there's just something so good about it's like a comfort blanket, I guess.
Yeah, well, Lily Shambles, good to see you. Escapism. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of shows are earthbound. I'm intrigued really because like I said, I joined Doctor Who really in the later Pertwee years, so it was less earthbound. So I didn't get that vibe. I got the idea that you could go anywhere, and that I get that, Lily.
Like
Totally.
Pelennor.
Yeah. What about you, Dwayne?
Yeah, well, that was my first thought, was that it was pure escapism for me. It could take me away, take me anywhere. Not necessarily that it did, because I became a huge fan during the Pertwee years where it was all earthbound, but the potential was there to go anywhere and anywhen, and the canvas was kind of blank, and you could put anything on it with Doctor Who. That's what I always felt, and I found that very exciting, more exciting than established science fiction formats like Star Trek. You've got the whole universe in Doctor Who, but everywhere is different. Nothing is ever the same.
Yeah,
apart from the Doctor. Even the Doctor's never the same.
Yeah.
He can change all throughout. So the whole show is about change.
You're almost making me do the toxic alert, because they've used that word so much. It's always about change, you lot, and we've just decided to change it completely and radically. No, I do get that. It has a flexible format that Star Trek and some of the other sci-fi shows didn't have. I did like Star Trek, the original series as a kid.
Yeah.
But it was a set format, and even they wanted to bend it. And they tried to do a kind of 1920s show with Joan Collins, and they tried to do a fantasy one. They always tried, because they were trying to get out their straitjacket sometimes. Now, Doctor Who wasn't really in a straitjacket. The snag is and I think the reason we love Doctor Who is its flexibility, and that's its downfall as well, because all you need is a dodgy producer, a dodgy showrunner to say, it's so flexible, I'm going to make it into EastEnders. Or, you know what I mean? And that's the snag. But yes, I do think it's a reason we love it, is because you don't have a clue what's going to come up.
Yeah, and like everyone always talks about the Pertwee era as being earthbound, but when you like having revisited it, even season 7, it's still yes, it is earthbound, but it doesn't feel earthbound, because it feels like at any moment you could end up somewhere else still with what's going on. He travels into space at one point through Ambassadors of Death, and there's stuff going on that when he travels sideways. So it's kind of like earthbound, but earthbound adjacent. I don't know.
Yeah, there was something that it just got my imagination fired up. It just got my little kid's imagination tripping. It really did. It was just so thrilling. It frightening, but in that way where you think, no, but I want to see what happens next. And I mean, I don't think I ever talked about it at school for quite a while. But if they said, "Oh, tell us, write your diary for what you did at the weekend," and you could only write a few sentences and then draw a picture, it was always Doctor Who-ish. Yeah, I do. Oh, that vibe! I wish we could get that vibe back. I don't know if it's only being a kid as well. That absolute magic of it and the mystery. Paul Holgate, vague memories of the spiders and Pertwee regenerating, but then remember something from every story since. But how magical is that, to see this character change, die, but not? It's just amazing. Mad Mackham, it's been a constant in my life, just like you said, Dan, really, with classics Who, a constant source of entertainment, advice, education, camaraderie with fans, and a reminder of a more innocent family around then. I mean, this is what we've got to tap into sometimes. I mean, I do try that, with certain things that are going on from time to time. I keep thinking, but I do stick with it. Divine and Dragon, in a way for me, it was a disappointment that it wasn't aired concurrently in the States during the 60s, so I could have witnessed Hartnell and Troughton when they were first run. When I did my Bigenerate show on Wednesday, James, who's obviously younger, he's a Zennial, he said, because I was talking about Davros and seeing them in Genesis, and he said, but I don't have that experience at all. He said, I'd already seen Davros in photographs. And then I just, started watching Doctor Who later on. So he never got that moment. Well, like when we followed Sarah and he saw Davros and we didn't know who he was. I mean, I felt a bit sad really because I thought, oh yes, I can see how Davros wouldn't be as big as to us.
And even if you had seen Genesis, because you only saw it once in that episodic format, and then your imagination would go back to it and revisit it. You couldn't just go back and watch it again on streaming or something like that, like you can these days.
No.
You had to go to the target books, and then your imagination would get deeper. So there was something very special about the days when before there was the internet and streaming. There was a very different fan experience, that's for sure.
Oh, look at this. I mean, we're going to go on to New Who. We're going to go on to season 12. We're going to go on to various things. But I think now and again in this show today, because it's Valentine's Day, we're going to say reasons why we love Doctor Who. So we've just got it going. Mate, you feel better talking about it. Sam and Bill, I was 3 in 87, started watching it then. We all have our different kind of entry points, don't we? Because the next one down there is Ron. Born in 63, it was my destiny to follow Doctor Who. Well, you lucky chap. Because to see it in chronological order and to have seen it, and remember, you'll have seen episodes that don't even exist now. It is amazing. The thing that confuses me, lads, well, it doesn't confuse me. It's such a big world. Ron says Earthbound with Unit was its best. And Lee Smith was saying something similar about what we need is a good, gritty Earthbound story. And I was thinking, I just want to get off Earth because all we do is talk about this, please, no more. It gives them an excuse to do politics. But what is your, before we move on, what would be your favorite story for Doctor Who? What I mean is, where would you like the TARDIS to go?
Look, to be honest, I'm just yearning for some characters that I really want to follow, and this afternoon I was watching just that opening story with Sarah Jane and Harry and the Doctor, and just how quickly they form there's a chemistry there. It's such a shame that there wasn't more of the three of them, because it was a really, really perfect chemistry there between the three of them. And it felt like there was, like, I remember as a kid always, it's one of those things where when people say, oh, there's only so much Faulty Towers, when you think about how little there is of actual Harry and Sarah and the Doctor, it still surprises me, because it feels like there's a lot more of it than there is.
Yeah.
Possibly because of that, those cameos later through other stories like Zygons and what's the other one?
Android Invasion?
Android Invasion, that's the one.
So, Dwayne, I've got Lee Smith here saying, take the TARDIS to Skaro, but where would you like to take it?
Well, what I would really love is for the show to do, as my name suggests, a pure historical, because I love those stories. I mean, many of the pure historicals of the past, there isn't that many of them, but quite a few of them tend to take a comic leaning. But you've got the theatrical ones like Marco Polo and the Aztecs. I just love the Aztecs as well. And I would love the modern series to do something like, can you imagine what the fires of Pompeii would be like without the aliens, if they were historically accurate too? I would hate them to go back and change something that's inaccurate or try and rewrite history somehow through the show like they've done in recent years. If they took it seriously and put its own internal humor through it, that'd be really cool, because I think every now and then, if we're going into Earth history, you don't always need monsters.
No, I mean, Reign of Terror and all of those, they didn't. The Aztecs, they didn't. The Romans one, which ended up being a bit comedic, and you think, God, you could have done I mean, there were elements to it where, of course, you you become a slave and all the rest of it. But they could have really, really darkened that, I suppose, with it being tea time. But yes, reasons why we love Doctor. We're going to mention more later. There's me, for some reason. Why am I looking like blooming Adric? I do think Sontarans are probably my favorite. I do think that.
You said it, not now
I know,
that
I
you said
can't
it, I
help
can't
it.
unsee it.
So you know, I'm not going to do the stories again, but why do I love Doctor Who? I mean, I managed to to see them all in action in 1983. Troughton, Pertwee, Davison, Baker, and
Oh, here we go. He works long lead into it somehow.
yeah. Well, you always work Peladon. I was just, but yeah. I mean, why do you love Doctor Who? Well, and there's my Blackpool connection with good old Colin, counting his money. So we normally we've delayed this item slightly, but it's our ups and downs of the Doctor Who week. So, ups and downs of the week. Dwayne, where would you like to start? Anything comes to mind?
Well, like I said, I've been going through the season 8 Blu-ray, and the reason I've been doing that is because I've been ripping them onto my hard drive because I'm so lazy. I will never take the discs out and put them in, so they sit there on the shelf. So I thought, right, I'll give myself something to do. I'll rip them all to a hard drive, and then I'll go out and watch all those extras. And as I've been doing it, I've been flicking through some of the extras that I haven't seen, and some really good stuff in there. So I'm looking forward to the season 7 box set coming out. Only one season to go to complete the Pertwee era now, so hopefully that'll be out in the next year or two, and we'll have a full set of Pertwee on Blu-ray. That'd be nice. So that's probably my number one up for the week.
Yeah. What about you, Dan?
Well, I had a nice relaxing detox this afternoon, which is my up, watching Ark in Space. So that's this week's up for me. Yes, and I even got the disc out, the Blu-ray out, and watched it in full, like big screen and everything.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause, unlike Dwayne, I'm not too lazy to get my disc out.
Where are we going with this? So,
I've got another one. I forgot I forgot a huge up for this week. We're talking about series 12. I had a 3-hour Zoom chat with one of the directors from season 12 this week. I won't say any more than that. I won't drop the name, but that's for something down the track.
Why not drop the name? Drop the name.
Nah. Keep you guessing.
Of the original season 12.
There's only 5 to choose from.
yeah,
I was going to say, like,
they're not all here.
How many are left?
Exactly. He's found them. He's
well, it's not Rodney Bennett. It's not. It's not David Maloney.
Small Swole Goat. They're playing way too safe, even on audio. War games censored, re-release of Sirens of Time. Even they won't do historicals deeper. Yeah. That's the only thing with doing historicals, isn't it? That kind of do they want to do a kind of 2025 cleaning up of it or something, which would be
that's the thing that I always struggle with if you go pure historical is how do you play with it without taking the agency of the people away, because it always ends up being the doctor, having the doctor intervene or whatever, can really mess it up. I mean, it's a bit like, that's where allegory is safer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's a few reminders of people in the Doctor Who world and things going on. I mean, I'm not saying they're all ups or downs necessarily. David Tennant's doing the BAFTAs again. I know that's not Doctor Who. He tends to get, he upset Kate Blanchett last year, apparently. So he said he's going to be a good boy. But of course, he's quite notorious in some awards, isn't he, to say some things like he wishes certain politicians weren't here and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a bit of, is that up or is that down, or is that just kind of non-Doctor Who, we can
so sad. It's hard to see a Doctor.
I find Tennant's really irritating me lately. Every time I look at him, I was going, I don't even want to watch his episodes anymore because it's just So he's
Yeah,
says such irritating things.
yeah. It's a shame. It's a bit like RTD coming back has spoiled his first era, really. And I think
It's a bit like that, yeah.
David Tennant's just, I mean, he's come back, which is nice because we all wanted Tom Baker to come back for the Five Doctors. Well, you do think, oh no, too much. It's a shame. It really is a shame. It diminishes them in the end. This one,
Yeah,
of course,
he's already done himself out within 20 years, and Tom's still going strong at 90.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. I mean, look at this. I mean, we have to have. I think this will go on till our dying day. Now there'll be an episode or a Doctor Who story that has to get tweaked or taken off. I mean, it'll be fascinating what they do with the two Neil Gaiman ones when it's all been decided and discussed. You know, we've got two stories there that I don't know. I mean, the way this world is now, if it's somebody who touched it who they don't like, they take you away. They do a Kevin Spacey on you. So Hugh Edwards is obviously dubbed over, and they've put somebody else in as the news item in Fear Her. Took it down for months to do that little tiny thing and then put it back up. I'm a funny one with this. I'm thinking it doesn't change the program. If somebody's committed a crime, the crime has still happened and the pain has still happened and the suffering still happened. I agree they shouldn't get any royalties, or the family shouldn't get royalties. But I just start to think, God, if you do this to everything in history, I don't know what's going to be left really. But I don't know. What do you think of all this? Because I think the more we've been dabbling in pop culture and politics, I think the more Doctor Who's going to be the victim of this if we agree with it.
It's a little bit silly. I mean, I said I was looking through Series 8. I was looking at a bit in Colony in Space just today, actually. And do you remember the line there where Joe's talking to the daughter of Ash, and they crack this funny, she said, oh, don't worry, Jim will fix it. Ha, ha, ha. And they had this little in-joke. And
yeah.
I thought that was hilarious. That hasn't been taken. That has. I'm sort of, glad it hasn't been taken out, because it doesn't make me think of the character in question. It makes me think of the show, and that it was a funny kind of in-joke. It doesn't really do anything, I don't find it offensive, whereas some people might, I suppose. But yeah, that's an example of something from back then that could easily be taken out.
Well, it's just, I think the people who do this in the end, it's half cooked anyway. In Britain, Hugh Edwards, he's been slammed to rights for what he's done and all the rest of it, and therefore doesn't work for the BBC. But I bet you there'll have been people who worked for Doctor Who between 63 and now, who are old news, but nobody can be bothered going back over to change those episodes or anything, because who cares? It's just whatever's talked about now. And I find this with virtue signaling, that sometimes it's quite compartmentalized. I do not want them to go over 61 years of Doctor Who and see if any criminal or somebody with a speeding fine was involved and take them out. But, you get that vibe. I just think, look, I'm a grown-up. I'm not going to, well, I'm a grown up enough to say I'm not going to watch Fear Her again before I die, because it was so crap. But but
so what did they do? Like superimpose another newsreader over the top of him, or what was the solution?
Well, as Paul Richards has said, have they edited out those scenes? I've not seen it. They've just dubbed over Hugh Edwards, and I think it's a female newscaster now. That's all they've done. They've just, because he's not in it much. It's that silly pop culture references we do. But
if there was an episode I could afford to not see again, it was Fear Her. I know, Dwayne, I think you stuck up for it, didn't you?
Yeah, I don't mind it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Scribble Monster one, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
But as Morgan Dean says, it's censorship, and censorship is a slippery and dangerous slope. And the thing is, I don't know what it really serves. Okay, somebody committed a crime who happened to be on Doctor Who for seconds. Oh, we must redub it. Oh, we must do this. Oh, we must edit. And you think, you've got to apply the same rule to every episode of Doctor Who and TV then, don't you? And I don't want them to do that because that's just disruptive. Because I'm old enough, I'm mature enough to go, when I'm watching that, if I was watching it and they still showed the Hugh Edwards bit, I'd go, oh, that happened. I don't know what are they trying to do? Clean everything up? Is this kind of the Puritans?
Yeah, I
don't know. I just think people seem to not be able to grow up and handle anything anymore. Or as far as the BBC is concerned, it is virtue signaling. So it's bizarre. It's bizarre.
Yeah, but I just can't see anyone actually being genuinely upset about this thing, other than someone being offended on someone else's behalf. So
it's just that when you look back, the way history is working at the moment, and the people who've been cancelled from Doctor Who and who are popular in Doctor Who, you think, so John Barrowman is the worst person, apparently, the way this judgment goes in the history of Doctor Who, is he? No, he's not. Do you know what I mean? He hasn't even been arrested for anything. He hasn't done anything in that way. He hasn't been charged with anything, yet he's been cancelled.
To me, it shows the gutlessness of Bad Wolf and all these the Doctor Who family around them, because I don't see why they can't stick up for him and Noel Clarke.
Well, look, in our democracies, don't we have that very simple rule? You're innocent until you're proven guilty. And that's the only way you can operate. You can't have this media, the media wolves are out, because the media wolves only chase something current. And like I said, if you're going to apply the rule, because if you don't do it to everything, then there's no point in doing it just to some. It's just stupid. So, we must get rid of that newscaster. We must get rid of John Barrowman, and Captain Jack will never come back. And there'll be maybe other characters or people in the history of Doctor Who and TV who are on, and nobody's going to even bother looking. And I think it's an immaturity. The people who've been hard done by the crime, it doesn't make them any better. I can understand in the case you were mentioning, Dwayne, we've got a horrific case with, that children's TV presenter in the 70s. And it was so vile and so evil, really, and so prolific that, yes, if you kept showing programs with his blooming face on, I think that would be disturbing for the victims. I understand that.
Yeah.
We've had all our shows from the 80s that everyone sat down to watch here tainted in some way. I mean, we had you look
Hey
at
Dad.
it and Hey Dad, Cosby. It's like, oh man, is there anyone we can watch without?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is about taking Hugh Edwards out of the fear here is, as Paul Holgate's saying here, he was the BBC presenter for the whole of the death of Queen Elizabeth II. He covered all that coverage and then moved on to the coronation. So what? I bet they're not dubbing over that because it's a major historical event. And then you think, well, this is farcical. Utter farce.
You could take the dad out of Hey Dad and just call it Hey.
Hey.
You could do that.
Yeah, there's just no way you can go to that show these days.
So I'm sorry about that. I should have done a toxic alert there, but this is cheery news.
Do we listen to Doctor and the TARDIS, because that's based on a song that was done by someone else who got in trouble along those lines? How it's a slippery slope, isn't it? How far do you take these things?
It is, and I think I'm saying you should apply it evenly. However, and I've come up with an exception with that children's presenter, because there's victims who are still alive, and what he did was vile. So yeah. So here's cheery news. The Savages are imminent, and they were showing us the covers and telling us a little bit more what's inside. Aren't we funny? You see, you can tell we love Doctor Who because everybody gets excited when all they've shown us is the artwork. But did you see it, lads?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
So there you go. front and back.
I'm excited.
They-
I really like The Savages. It's a great story, really good story. And Frederick Jaeger does an excellent William Hartnell when he there's a mind transference where some of the Doctor's mind personality gets into him, and he does really good Hartnell. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, I think when we discussed this a few weeks ago, it's going to be a lovely mystery to me because I think I've listened to it on the audio a long time ago, and that's it. I'll have read the book, of course, when it came out, but I can't remember much, so it's great.
Hey, Brendan,
Yeah.
just is or Dwayne, you probably is Freddie Jaeger the guy that plays Sorensen
Yeah,
in Mind of Evil?
yeah. Oh no, in Planet of Evil.
No, he plays
Planet of Evil.
Marinus.
Planet of Evil.
Planet, yeah. And
Yeah.
he plays Marius in Invisible Enemy.
Marius, that's right.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I must admit, I do love. We looked at the artwork last week for 10th Planet, and you just think, God, this gets me fired up because just the pictures take me back to, you get a Doctor Who book as a kid and an illustration, and your mind just does the rest.
Yeah,
I mean,
I can't wait for this. I'm really, really looking forward to this as much as the season 7 actually.
Now look at this. Everybody's taking the mick out of Dodo here. She's not been happy on Valentine's Day. I think she seems to be dismissing somebody. Maybe you got an issue about size. I don't know.
Measuring something, I thought. Yeah.
Is it Stephen Taylor she's not impressed with? So I don't know. It was quite funny watching that.
She's saying you missed me by that much.
Well, and then it was just serendipity that as I saw this and this came out, and I do all those Simpsons episodes, but I didn't realize that in the Simpsons they'd put an Easter egg in of Dr. Chaplet in the Simpsons.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I know.
Wow,
They got the same haircut. Same haircut.
So
that's cool.
She's doing the same finger thing as well. No. So there you go. Dodo. She lives on in the Savages animation, and she lives on in a Simpsons episode. There you go. I thought I'll give you a little nugget there, everybody, for this lovely Friday. Okay, I think we're due a Vox Pops, lads. I think we need to risk the toxic levels, It's always very important to just kind of do that.
So we're just starting to go down for me.
I know.
I'm put it back up again.
I'm a devil on this one. Here we go. Vox Pops from the Vortex. So this one is not Dodo. This one, it's going very slowly at the moment. Hold on, sorry, lads. 1 second. Here we go. Streaming. That's something we've been talking about a lot. Every Doctor Who fan, is Disney doing this? Is Disney doing that? Blah, 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 blah. Right, okay, let's just go wider. As this fan was saying, which streaming service should the BBC partner for Doctor Who? Assume self-funding isn't an option and a streaming partner is required. And
I think it's the wrong question. I think the question should be which streaming service would touch something that the BBC wants to partner with.
That's the thing. They need to have a good product first, which it absolutely isn't. Otherwise, Disney would have kept it.
And the same with Netflix. I mean, Netflix had made Doctor Who massive in the US through the Matt Smith era. And then it died. I think they pulled it off in the Jodie era from memory.
So Lee Smith's calling Apple TV. I don't know anything about Apple TV, so it doesn't mean much at the moment.
I was thinking about this only tonight because I was just watching the latest episodes of Cobra Kai that have just dropped, which I've spoken about before. And Cobra Kai is an interesting one because, they often split series into 2. Well, I didn't realize this series 6 is being split into 3. So we had 5 episodes, then we had 5. Now we're on to the next 5. So, 11 to 15. And I just started on those tonight. what an interesting format. And I always thought Cobra Kai was a fascinating format because they could go anything from 25 minutes to 40 minutes an episode. And that's precisely what Doctor Who could do. They could do that, and they could drop a bunch in one go, make it one story, and then drop another bunch and have another story. Or they can just do them weekly like they do with other shows, streaming shows that I've been watching.
Or
There's plenty of shows that still drop.
Peloton.
There's still shows that drop weekly.
Yeah.
So I think Doctor Who is right for a shorter episode format, down to 25, 30 minutes per episode, and have cliffhangers back in.
Yeah.
And I think Netflix would be the way to go, I think. But Netflix will hold the BBC. They won't give them any money.
I'd love that.
That the BBC wants, I don't think.
Well, Boomer
after the debacle that's been Disney.
Well, yeah, Boomer Doug and his budgie smugglers, no doubt, in Adelaide. Apple has a reputation for quality. Now,
and woke.
Right, we don't know quite yet. We're all speculating about Disney, but do you think Disney was a good match for the Doctor Who operation?
No, I never thought so right from the beginning.
Did you see? I feel as though RTD's been given easy cover here, because for a lot of the time, I think everybody thought every change was because of Disney, but I actually think it's because of RTD and not Disney. You know?
Yeah, I agree.
No, Disney's never had, like, they've had the notes as that came out. They had notes, and he did a new scene for the Christmas episode based on those notes that we know about. But ultimately, all Disney wanted was the worldwide distribution streaming. That's all they wanted, and that's what they do with properties. They like to tie them up. It's just what they do.
And maybe get hold of all the classics, because then you've got a lot of coverage on your streaming platform.
I don't even know, and I think the BBC was just lazy and just farmed it out to Bad Wolf, expecting that because RTD was behind it, everything he does turns to gold. So the BBC didn't have to touch it, just left it all in the hands of Bad Wolf. That was a big mistake.
Very big mistake. You have to have somebody, you hear of all these meetings when whoever was the producer on Doctor Who at the time, but they were called upstairs to the 6th floor of Television Centre, and, they're asked a question or whatever, or, Jonathan Powell, the controller of BBC One at the time, would say, I've just seen the so-and-so episode, too violent, this needs changing, But now I don't get the vibe that anything's said or done. As long as they're ticking certain boxes, it feels like, then they're given carte blanche to do what they want. But there is the problem. Doctor Who, misunderstood by the BBC, and they're letting somebody else run with it, and they might find that the whole thing is changed so much that they've got a dud on their hands by the end. I mean, I never understood this Disney thing. They were a big streamer, but I didn't see that they were a fit.
I just thought that there is no way that like the Doctor Who audience here in Australia is so aligned with ABC. I just couldn't see people going, oh, I can't wait to get my subscription to Disney to pay to see Doctor Who. It's just I couldn't see that happening, to be honest.
Well, their subscriptions didn't hold, did they? I mean, we've seen all the facts about that. That people subscribed and then unsubscribed, and all the rest of it didn't. And this is a killer.
Disney's not one of those things that you subscribe to and keep. Like Netflix is one that I never drop because there's always something on. My kids are always watching it. My wife's always watching it. But the other ones I've dropped because they would sit there for a couple of months and we wouldn't watch anything. So Netflix is the sort of one last man standing in my house.
Simon Mills, Disney wanted Bluey from BBC as it's bigger. Doctor Who was just part of the deal. Well, Bluey is, isn't it shocking? Bluey's bigger than Doctor Who. What the hell's going on? David Harding, the problem was, I think we, the fans and Disney, were sold a bill of goods by RTD. Everything with this current era has been overpromised and under-deliver. And that's the other rumor that you hear from Disney, isn't it? That Disney aren't really happy with the 15th Doctor characterization and or Shooty. And RTD quite rightly, obviously, because he picked Shooty, will stick with Shooty. I mean, you know, you've got to stick with your decision. But the rumor is there's a tension because of that.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Well, it's a killer one, because you would stick with your decision. Of course you would. Otherwise, why would you pick Shooty? So I expect RTD to be loyal to that decision. But then if your co-partner's saying we've got a problem with the main character or the main actor, well, you can't ignore that. You've got an impasse.
The bigger issue that I have is with Julie Gardner and Jane Tran. How could you sit on top of your own organization and look at what's been produced in season 1 and think we were anywhere near the ballpark of, 2005 in terms of a reboot? It's just,
I'll tell you why. I think when you see RTD and the way he treats some of the fans, that's probably the way he treats the people he works with. He probably has got some very bully-like tendencies there, and people are scared of him.
Yeah,
and that's the thing with the first era. There was a humility there when they first started in 2005. That there were a humility and a nervousness, like we're going to do the best we can because we don't know if this is going to work.
Yeah,
and then it did. It took off, became huge. And now with this, we're at the other end of the spectrum where it's like, well, we just can do no wrong. There is no humility at all, and no desire to make something work, because they think, well, everything we do works, and everything we say goes. It's not like, we're at the opposite end of the spectrum 20 years later.
I think you're spot on. They should realize themselves, though, that lightning doesn't strike twice. You've got to be careful what you did the first time. And if you got it right the first time, doesn't mean you're going to get it right twice. You know, he's older. I know what it's like. And I've said it before, you know, you can be in the same job, but 20 years older, you may not be connecting with the customers in the same way. It's just, that happens. So yes, Mark Morris here, Doctor Who used to be my favorite show. I mean, that verb is horrible, isn't it? It used to be. Would love to see Omega make a return. Go on, you might as well, Mark, put the caveat in, as every Doctor Who fan does, but basically not with this showrunner. Please don't, change Omega, turning him into a cat or something. Please just don't do it. Paul Holgate, the BBC is just wanting to satisfy quotas now. I mean, this is where you've got everybody's going on about Trump in America, and you're thinking, I know, but we've got 4.5 years of Labour and this kind of culture. It's not changing in Britain at all. You only have to look at the contestants on Strictly to see evidence of that. Yes, I know. I've stopped watching that as well. Geraint Williams, have you seen the article on the Radio Times website today about the future of Doctor Who? Tell us more. I've just been sat on the computer, Geraint.
Drop a link.
Yes.
Drop a link.
Have I missed a bit of news? And there's me on the, oh my gosh, behind the times. So Sydney Rough Diamond, times are tough and streaming services are an unnecessary luxury. It's bad enough a BBC TV license exists. Well, what about that rumour that to stop people from giving up on their BBC license, that they said, even if you've got Netflix or Apple, the government's thinking about that you have to pay a TV license for any streamer.
That's insane.
I know, just to protect the BBC.
It's funny. I kind of feel that we here in Australia, ABC viewerships dropped so much that it kind of feels like, I resent the fact we're having to pay for that now, because it doesn't. As a channel that I used to watch a lot and go to the ABC shop and listen to their news channel, it's all become unwatchable. And the fact that we're paying for that as taxpayers now, I kind of go, make it a subscription, and then I won't pay for it.
Monday nights for me used to be, I would religiously watch, like I usually watch ABC News, then I'd watch 7:30, and then I can't remember what else was in between, but later I'd always tune into Q&A. I haven't watched that. Is it still going? I don't even know if it's still going, but I haven't watched that for years.
Sounds like you and I are very similar in our tastes, because I was very much a heavy watcher, and I just think now I couldn't even stand to turn it on.
And for those who aren't in Australia, I mean, I know Q&A because I was still watching it when I was over there. But Q&A is our version of Question Time. The trouble is, I could see a similar format, and then suddenly the ABC took it very, very heavy and academic, and it got very worthy. And as soon as you go too far there, it gets really dull as ditch water. And the
It's
topic
because one side of politics wouldn't come on anymore because they just get go in and just get they will go for the
Smashed.
gotcha or get smashed.
Yeah. I mean, I've noticed that even in our Question Time audiences, the BBC deny it, but there seems to be we see all the opinion polls and we see which parties are doing well and which aren't. And then you see the BBC audience and they all seem to boo and hiss at anybody on the slightly right side of things. And you're going, oh, I don't know if you've quite got the balance right to the audience. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure it's reflected.
Based on what's coming out internationally, the left has really gotten good at generating propaganda, though. So I don't think they ever tried to get neutral audiences, to be honest.
Well, David Harding in Toronto, what I heard when the Disney deal was announced was that they were going to be hosting all of Doctor Who, classic New Who and New Who. And then we found out it was just limited. Maybe they just found out. I mean, sometimes the small print can be, Paul Holgate, depends on the individual. There was always something coming on Disney for me because of the Marvel or Star Wars shows. But I will drop in and out of the other streaming services. I know on our Woke show tonight, we're discussing Mark Hamill's, Luke Skywalker's gay. This is what he said. Mark Morris, I don't think the writers or actors change everything. The problems are the overbearing DEI. There might have been some sense to it at some point, but it's when you do it in a zealous fashion, you've lost the plot. RTD2 thought he was being very clever by getting 2 series in the can. That's all because of Disney, isn't it? That's all to do with the Disney deal. If they were just doing it themselves, he wouldn't have had to have rushed through this. Now, and later on in our show today, I'll be talking about RTD Moonlights, and he's had time to write 5 parts for another drama as well. I mean, you can say somebody's prolific. Sometimes prolific means it gets a little bit light. I mean, bless him, Terrence Dicks wrote maybe too many Target books. Just sometimes they're a little bit on the thin side. And we all know when somebody is stretched. And I think RTD must be way stretched. So we'll be discussing that a bit later. David Harding, just to wrap up on this, we didn't get the Tales from the TARDIS. We didn't get the BBC Proms. We only got RTD2 episodes. In the end, how anyone not be disappointed with what we got? Yeah, I mean, even the Proms feel different because I just feel as though something's happening. I just feel as though they're doing something to me. Mark Morris, thank you very much. Very nice of you. I love this channel. Thank you guys for keeping Doctor Who alive. It's not dead. It can still be saved. And we will be talking about why we love Doctor Who throughout this show. We'll come back to it a little bit later. So I think we should keep going. And I think I'm on that point where we will be talking about... the one thing I wanted to say, lads, before we move off this is, I know that's the premise of the question, but I actually think Doctor Who still can be made in-house. If you made 8 versions of Horror Fan Rock, and what I mean is by a lower budget, one set, just a good script. I really have no reason. Why? How come they can make Silent Witness? How can they make other programs and simple dramas? Doctor Who always had a tight budget. It doesn't need a big streaming budget. It just needs practical common sense applied. I still think the premise of that question is fair enough, but I think it could be done in-house.
I think Doctor Who should go back to being a training ground for all the trades required in television to make good TV and basically put all the young apprentices through their paces. So, you only go and do it if you've got something to prove.
Yeah.
So that you're hungry and humble and you've got to be smart to do it.
I've tripped the classmates in the thread now. Join us at 7 p.m. because we're discussing that and other things about Mark Hamill, and William Shatner's really laid into him. It's really good fun. So
Good.
it's good. You've got Star Wars v Star Trek. So just before we move on, I have promised this. We've got Nuwho to talk about, 20 years coming up. We've got season 12 retro to talk about, and a few other little tasty morsels like RTD doing a Moonlit flit. So Dan, another reason why you've stuck with Doctor Who.
Because there's just no other show like it. It is, unique. There really isn't a substitute. Yeah, it's. I don't know about. I mean, we mentioned escapism before, but for me, it is one of those things that when I've got some time, it you can just imagine that box turning up and taking you somewhere, and going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned escapism and some of those things, but one other thing I was thinking of is that it does something to me where I just feel that there's an excitement for this show coming back that I don't get with anything else. And, I wasn't there for an unearthly child, but I can imagine the excitement and thrill of this foggy, little scrapyard and police officer going past, and this strange acting older man, and the mystery of where's this schoolgirl gone, and then the hum of the spaceship, and then them take. I still want that. I still want us to do now and again a lengthy takeoff. I know it dematerializes, but that takeoff they had in Unearthly Child. I mean, that was fab. And then the excitement, of course, of Chris Eccleston and that Do You Want to Come With Me? I mean, there's two examples where I'm thinking there's only this show that can do that to me. I mean, you've got another lovely reason why you stick with Doctor Who?
Well, the feelings I had in my childhood remain. Doctor Who was always a safe place to be for me, whether it be in a Target book or on the TV. It was a world where I felt safe, and I had a lot of trouble when I was young at school with bullies and things like that. I got beat up a lot. So when I was watching Doctor Who, I could forget all that, and I guess it ties in with the escapism type of thing. But particularly with Pertwee, I felt safe with him. He was the kind of guy I wanted to hang out with. I felt like he was my protector,
Yeah.
So that's, and all of those classic Doctors pretty much are like that. Maybe with the exception of Davison. He's more of a, an uncle. Wants to take you off somewhere, but that all of them made me feel very safe, and that's a childhood thing that stuck with me, and I guess my parents hoped I would grow out of it, and they're still waiting for me to grow out of it.
It is, and I know you can't disconnect the nostalgia element, because you touch your childhood again and you relive it. It's the only time machine we've got, isn't it? Is to touch that moment again. If I'm sat in the lounge tonight and I put on a Pertwee, so if I put on a Doctor Who story and Jamie's just sat there and he likes not to know what it is, and so if I put it on and he goes, "Oh, it's a Pertwee," and as soon as you hear Pertwee say something, that third Doctor down a corridor and say something, there is something that I can't explain, like you're saying, Dwayne, where it just seems to and we're at ease. It's all okay. He's in charge. And maybe I got a bit older when it was Tom Baker, so I needed a bit more of the kind of unpredictable. But I don't know, it just seemed to work. Now, you know what it's like in Australia, lads. There's tribal rivalry. There's, between states and, all the rest of it. Melbourne and Sydney, for example, are always kicking off with each other. Now I'm surrounded by Mad Mackham from Sunderland, and I'm surrounded by the Toon Army from Newcastle, and there's me, a Middlesbrough fan. I am really getting a pincer movement here. Doctor Who can be made by BBC Studios like other dramas, like back in 2005 till the Geordie era, but I think the money got bigger and bigger every series because of the effects and VFX. And I'm not, then I'm not going to say today that's why I love Doctor Who. I'm not going to say in any of my answers I watched Doctor Who for the special effects. I watched Doctor Who for the imagination, and maybe their effects can't deliver but I love to see them try. I always seem to always say Nightmare on Eden when they were trying to get one spaceship fusing with another spaceship, or Creature from the Pit when you had to spin around a star. I mean, honestly,
Brilliant.
only Doctor Who would even go there.
I still really enjoy the fact that, you know, even at the time they knew that they hadn't landed it, but the ambition of the story outstretched the budget and the capacity, and
Yeah.
I think I just can't think of any other show that did operated like that. You know,
And they landed. Sometimes you just need some green bubble wrap. You don't need to. You see, my criticism is Boom. As you know, I'll keep going back to the Boom episode and saying they bought that massive LED screen, and we all just said, "Well, you could have just gone to a quarry." I really don't know why that was necessary. That was a waste of money to me. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think they need it. Lily Shambles, since Doctor Who's been around as long or longer than most of us here, maybe it's just a comforter. Well, it's part of the culture. It is part of the culture. And why do I still love Doctor Who? Says poor David Harding in Toronto. This is going to be a very Canadian answer, but it's because it's not Star Trek. And I like Star Trek, but with Doctor Who, we get something different, but great too. Yeah, I think we were saying earlier about you said, Drain, didn't you? The flexibility of the format, really. So
I think the there's a interesting point in that person's answer there, though. I think the RTD's obsession and love for Star Trek Discovery and some of these other
Buffy, Stranger
shows
Things.
that have been damp squibs are probably why his modern era has failed to take off.
Well, he is a bit. I mean, I'm still hitting on the news here, so here we go, folks. Did you actually see the interview with Alex Kingston? And she was talking about her time on Nuwho, and this was interesting. I was working with a sack full of puppies, she said, explaining her Matt Smith Doctor Who years. So let's explain a little bit more, because I found it fascinating, because there's always a dig or there's always something to learn from this. So Kingston's guest appearance took place mostly between seasons 5 and 6. At the end of season 4, David Tennant's Doctor regenerated and the world changed. Kingston says of that time, I mean, particularly for Matt, he was, having to fill some very, very big shoes in having the baton passed on to him from David Tennant. And so, there was a lot of pressure on them all to be as good, if not better. And she continues, it was sort of stressful to begin with, but then each time I came back, they were so much better and having such a good time. And it was like I'd say a couple of years in, it was literally like I felt like I was working with a sack full of puppies. And then just to explain that, because then the audience, because she was at a convention, were laughing at that point. She said, Matt Smith, Gillen, Darvill were mental, you guys. It was like Rolling Stones or something. You never went to bed. It was just nuts. I mean, I felt like I was sort of trying to be Mary Poppins, keeping it all together. You were so unprofessional, but having such a good time. And don't even get me started on the press tour in New York. I was living in the States in the Matt Smith years, and so I would come back into England to do one of the episodes, and I'd be asked to come along and join in. And it was really great, because every time I joined in, the group, which was Matt, Karen and Arthur, had sort of bonded more and had become more confident. So it was a really nice interview. And it taps into what you were saying about the RTD1 years, Dwayne, which was they were careful, they were cautious, they were on edge, they were not sure it would happen. And it sounds as though, bless him, Matt Smith, and the team came in and thought, do you know what? We might not last, because there had been a rumor that after David Tennant, it might stop. And so the pressure was on, and bless them, but that's the best creative tension, isn't it? They really went for it. You could see in 11th Hour, the style, the direction, the writing, the acting. Yes, Doctor Who always changes. It was very Doctor Who, but by God, it had been turbocharged, hadn't it?
Definitely felt like a reboot.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. I mean,
When
Dwayne,
if it,
when you look
looking
back at
back from
those
here 20 years later, and looking at the RTD, yeah, I can see that. I can see the good qualities of that particular era. But to me, I don't think it really properly became Doctor Who. Well, I say that probably say that with a level of irritation with Tennant at the moment, because I always thought Eccleston was fantastic, but we just didn't get enough of him. But when Matt Smith came along, I felt that was when it was proper Doctor Who started then. And those years from then till the end of Capaldi were some really special years. We often talk about, the writing went down here and there, but I don't know. I've gone back and looked over those, and it's, yeah, I think we were just talking from a level of familiarity as fans that we could be a bit more critical than we were, because it wasn't so new and special. So we were being a little bit more critical. But when you go back and compare the two eras, for me personally, my taste is in the Moffat years for sure.
Okay.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I think it's more consistent with classic Who than any other period that we've had.
Because there were lots of, I know. I might have to do a retrospective and look at the Matt Smith years again properly. I mean, I've done 11th Hour, but I need to delve in. I did Vincent and the Doctor recently for one of the shows we're doing next week. But no, I need to look back, because, we were talking about, we knew, just like I'm going to mention RTD doing a moonlit flit to Channel 4 currently to do a different show. We knew Sherlock and Stephen Moffat, and we knew he was stretched. And we knew that kind of did stuff up production for a while with Doctor Who. And I know there was a suspicion from some fans, which is he's too stretched and he needs to focus on Doctor Who and or Sherlock. But when you looked back, Dwayne, you didn't get that vibe?
No, well, he doesn't get off the hook completely. There are certain aspects of his era that I find a little bit irritating. I find the whole... I like River Song at the time, but I've since gone back and looked at The Time Traveller's Wife, and it's basically a rip-off of The Time Traveller's Wife, which Doctor Who can do. It can rip things off if it does it right, but it's virtually beat to beat. It's the same story, virtually. So that whole and people say
if it works, it works.
The Doctor's wife type thing. Well, they never really got married. It was a time thing at the sort of paradox thing at the end that never really happened anyway. So we're just dealing with River's obsession. They're not actually married. What else did he do that I didn't like? Well, it was through Moffat that we got the first gender swapping regeneration.
Hellbent.
There was that. We saw it actually happen on Gallifrey, but of course we had Missy as well come in, and that started the whole that's he's got his part to play in that whole debacle that was to come.
And he did
that's
invent,
his fault, I think.
And he did invent a phrase which I find myself using, but I hate
timey-wimey.
Yeah, hate it.
I'm trying to avoid using it now. It's used a bit much.
It sums up what they've done to science fiction. It's turned into this infantilized blather. In 1972, they had the Blinovitch limitation effect, and now they have timey-wimey. Has the world gone backwards? Discuss. I mean, come on. I mean, it's just mad, So yes. But I think from the day of the Doctor, I still don't know how he really, as a writer, just as a normal human being, carried that off, because there were enough things going on in that. The curator, of course. I don't know. It just pulled enough together. I mean, I do think, and I feel with my streams recently, we've all been saying the same thing, which is I don't think you can ever do another multi-Doctor story. It would just get too stupid now. But I think he just about nailed it.
You could do one as long as it only had one or two others max. You couldn't do more than 3 Doctors, I don't think.
No.
That's what was successful about Day of the Doctor, I think, was that there wasn't too many. They squeezed them all in at the end, but it was only for a couple of minutes.
Lovely touches though, weren't there? I just thought, oh my God, that you could only do that once. He's just about got away with it. Oh wow. And And of course, everybody talks about the trailer, that amazing illustrated trailer in 3D when you saw every Doctor, and this is the day of the Doctor, and the music's building. I mean, that's all under Stephen Moffat's reign. That kind of thing. He did some interesting things. I agree. It was the sexualization that really went to town, and I just thought, do we need it? Do we need all these plots? I know RTD'd opened the door, but oh God, talk about really going into it.
And now misses the war chief.
Yeah, exactly. So
True.
Alex Kingston, bringing the love there. I mean, she's a damn good actress. I enjoyed her. It was over. Like we said about David Tennant, River Song had a few too many episodes in the end. It was a nice trick, but then can we move on? Right, lad.
Did anyone else
It's
struggle with
an
the
unpopular
Mrs.
opinion.
So say that again. Sorry.
Unpopular opinion, but I fancy season 6 as probably my favorite of New Who.
Okay, I will look. I will promise, because that's why I always promise myself.
Astronaut.
Yeah.
The USA
With the silence. Yeah.
Silence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually got a really scary monster in the silence.
Yes. Is it too clever, the silence? Because I love the idea and the premise that once you can't see it, you've forgotten it. But then I think there's a flaw there somewhere, and I can't say it. But surely they'll always win then, because you could never. You'd have to have one staring at you.
Unless you have a texter.
It's a bit like the Weeping Angels, isn't it? The blink thing. I mean, you think, right, okay, it's a genius idea, but I think there's a flaw there somewhere. But anyway, now
I remember at the time, Let's Kill Hitler and all that got heaps of heat, but I
always loved it.
I loved it from the get-go. Yeah.
Well, I'll just wrap up on a few comments, and then we'll do our legacy ladder. Mark Jones could do a multi-Doctor story with flashbacks or AI with Doctors appearing for a few minutes. It's just what do you want, Mark? It's like, do we just want the kind of the novelty cameos, which is kind of nostalgia, or do we want a good story? Because I feel as though I'm now getting obsessively strict about, we just need to go back to good stories, and please don't overlay this attempt with all these fan fiction things. I
will give Chris Chibnall credit for what he did in Power of the Doctor and bringing all those classic Doctors back. I thought that was a clever way to bring them back. It's just a shame that the story surrounding that was complete bollocks. But I really appreciated that, and none of the other showrunners have done anything quite that clever, I don't think.
Well, the other thing to say, Dwayne, I mean, Stephen Moffat, we're giving him fair dues here. Night of the Doctor. I mean, that was a gift.
Big Finish is canon.
Yeah, that was, I know. But that was a gift. That was lovely, that. Toonami again, you see, I'm being decent as a Middlesbrough fan, even putting you on there. My God. Like I said, I think RTD was under pressure from Disney in this current era, filming 2 series in months. Doesn't do anything for me. I'd give Reese Shearsmith a call for showrunner. Well, it would go dark. It would go dark. He could appear as Patrick Troughton, couldn't he? Peter Venkman, hello. The Doctor is like a reminder of male relatives I loved and males that inspired me. I already had enough women around me. My late uncle was the only boy my grandparents had. See, it's every one of us. It touches us in different ways. Now, that just for a couple of weeks, now and again, instead of me saying what's your favorite episode that would have been on this day, because I don't want to repeat because they're all hitting the big ones. Here's my legacy ladder this week, lads. Who had the biggest, to you, I mean, we're all personal, in your thinking, who had the biggest impact on Doctor Who? Innes Lloyd, Philip Hinchcliffe, Chris Chibnall, Stephen Moffat. Classmates in the classroom of our thread, make your decision and give us your reason. I know people of a certain era like me will say Philip Hinchcliffe, we know what we love, but
that wasn't the question, though.
That's not the question. No, did it have legacy? Yeah. Because actually, for every brilliant Philip Hinchcliffe story, we then got Graham Williams and Mary Whitehouse having a fit. So it got kickback. Maybe it went too far. Maybe it was too successful. Maybe it had too much impact, but it didn't have longevity. So what do you reckon, Dan?
Or maybe it was a big skid mark. I think Chibnall's got the biggest skid mark, if that's an impact.
It's an impact, and it might be the biggest one.
Of a sort, yeah.
Yeah. You need a good washing powder. And I don't think RTD2 is the washing powder we need at the moment. Now, remember, everybody in my classmates here, they're all listening without telling me why. You naughty people, explain.
Well,
So
I'll tell you why.
Go on then.
Oh, without a doubt, it's Innes Lloyd. It has to be Innes Lloyd because he's the one that introduced the whole concept of regeneration in the first place. If it wasn't for him, the show would not have gone on without William Hartnell once he got too sick to continue.
Good call. And Cybermen, Innes Lloyd again, that era.
Yep.
Because if you want the show to have longevity, good call, Dwayne. There, you need regeneration. There's genius idea. Secondly, you can't just rely on the same monsters all the time, and actually that did expand it. And actually, you saw. I think if we added it up, would there be more Cyberman stories in the Troughton years? In the end, I think there really
in the Troughton years for sure.
Yeah,
there's only 2 Dalek stories, and I think there's 4 Cybermen stories. Isn't there, or is there 5? 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it's 5.
So I think they that helped expand this horrible other phrase, Whoniverse. So, but yes, regeneration. Every other TV program is jealous of Doctor Who in that regard, aren't they? Because Miss Ellie's actress in Dallas disappears, so you get Donna Reed in. You always in soaps and stuff. All you can do is just get an actor who looks a bit similar and pretend, which is not the same. Whereas in Doctor Who, there's a trick, and it's actually a magical, great effect and story to watch. You get a death, then you get a birth. It's really good. It's really good what they do. It's exciting. If you want to compare it to soap opera, you do get the death scene, and then you get the christening. You go through all these processes. It's really good, really, really good. I think that's a really good call out, actually, Dwayne.
I guess people who go to Hinchcliffe, you may be thinking Hinchcliffe because it's a very comfortable entire era, but he did also have some pretty big law-breaking stuff in there in The Deadly Assassin too, just before he left.
Yes, for Chris Chibnall's Timeless Children, which was his blundering attempt at something, you've got Hinchcliffe's Deadly Assassin, which worked.
And Brandon Morbius, don't forget.
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, oh God, that edit went into Timeless Children, didn't it? So now we've got Sunderland, Hinchcliffe for showing how to push a legacy show, Chibnall for his inability to keep stories coherent, and the Cloister Bell for Doom. Well, Hinchcliffe did push the boundaries, but then there was the kickback, and then we had years when we had to go all kind of university humor. I'm cheapening it. I did enjoy it, but I mean, I didn't want some of the humor. And Tom Baker did get carte blanche then to do some slapstick, and I cannot forgive that moment. It's either in season 17 or 16 when the TARDIS interior was looking battered and smaller and very badly lit, and there was a moment when we had wires everywhere, and there's that moment when you get that sound effect as if it's from a cartoon of something breaking.
That was the horns of Naimon.
Oh, yeah. That's the nadir for me. That went too far. You just, and I'm finishing off Invasion of Time tonight. The TARDIS making funny sounds as if it's almost like R2D2 when Rodan's messing with it. I don't know. And they've used that in Nuwho as well, even as recently as Wild Blue Yonder. Can't stand it.
I like all that stuff.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I don't know what's wrong with that.
You want the TARDIS to be a sentient being?
I like it when it's ambiguous and it could be in it, but it's also a machine.
Right. I'm gonna be a mischief now, Dan. Following up from what you've just said, we've got a writer who's under criticism and maybe criminal proceedings. I don't know, but he wrote one called The Doctor's Wife, which was the TARDIS. Now, did you like that story?
I did. I thought it was a very inventive bait and switch because it's not what I thought I was going in for, but I did actually enjoy that story.
So it would be a big loss to you if that disappeared, because it gave you an understanding in a different way of the TARDIS.
Yeah, I think I mentioned in someone's comment stream when that sort of news broke, I thought, oh, great. There was actually an episode there that, I wouldn't want to see removed. But, yeah. I don't want to see it wiped.
Well,
lucky I've got my DVD.
Well, I think you must have done well at school because you've shown flexibility of thinking in under exam conditions. You've said Chibnall, he made me appreciate all before him. Yeah, I bet you're good in a job interview as well, you Geraint Williams, Innes Lloyd, because he changed the premise slightly and brought scary sci-fi stories. Am I right in thinking, Dwayne, that Innes Lloyd did the monster season?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. It's a slam dunk then to add to your stuff as well.
And it wasn't long after he came in that I can't remember what his first story was, whether it was the Savages or the War. It might have been the War Machines. So he sort of set the groundwork for that Earth-based style that was to come and sort of base Under Siege. That was Series 5, the Monster Season, and then the unit stories later.
And was he there for Gunfighters?
No, that was John Wiles, I'm pretty sure.
And this is what's fascinating, because in all my arguments about this, that, and the other, I am aware, and I'll say it again, you don't need a showrunner or a producer who's heavily into sci-fi. You just need somebody who thinks out the box and thinks cleverly. And Innes Lloyd, I think, seals the deal on that one. Paul Richards, Chibnall was trying to make it more classic, but his scripts lay it down now and again. I mean, you can give him a point for endeavour and what he was aiming for. And he did, to his credit, say in his first season, he didn't want to bring all the villains and all the old stuff back. And I think RTD2 needs to do that. He's too reliant on the easy peasy Sutek stuff. I love the synth scores and title sequences, very classic.
I agree with that in a sense. I think it's fair to say that season 11 was a genuine attempt at a new vision. It just it wasn't that exciting. But it was, it did feel like it feels like a different show when you watch that season.
Yeah. Now I'll just explain to the Newcastle fan, Toonami. I know you might be doing well in the league, but you're late to the party, mate. No, we did a legacy ladder last week, and Verity Lambert was on it last week. So I only choose 4 because if you chose the whole list, we'd be here forever,
But you're right, Toonami. They keep pulling the card of, well, the first one's always the at the top because they've got to have the most impact forever.
I mean, we did give a lot of credit. I give a fair few shout outs to Verity last week, but if you look at last week's detox, we did too.
Last week it went to Barry Letts because three of the panelists love Barry Letts, but it should have been Verity Lambert.
There we go. You're that person who, at our wedding, somebody shouted out it should have been me. I was like, we had a comedy wedding where people were shouting out and barracking. So yes, should have been me, should have been him, should have been Barry. Boomer Doug. Hinchcliffe for taking Doctor Who in tandem with Tom Baker to heights it had never achieved and created a true legacy. It does give you a template to say that's what's possible with all the right team and good thinking. So if I was
the tandem's probably more Robert Holmes than Tom Baker, because Tom Baker was still finding his feet.
Yeah,
and
you could argue that when Tom Baker found his feet, people didn't like it.
Barry Letts hired Tom, so you've got that crossover too.
Well, you can tell there's interpolitics going on here. So the Sunderland fan has moved in with the Newcastle fan to just try and trigger a Middlesbrough fan who's getting beaten to pulp in the league. But I'm not rising to it. I'm just not rising.
Go JNT. Yeah,
yeah. Another one we did last week. Sorry,
the man who took down Tom Baker.
Sorry, Newcastle and Sunderland, you saw yesterday. So, yeah, there we go. So our final decision is what I think. I feel as though 2 of us have said Innes Lloyd. So the thing is, on the negative front, Chris Chibnall has left such a wart or sore on the whole of Doctor Who. I don't know if you can actually cut it out.
Boil on the bum.
Yeah. I mean, come on. The elephant in the room is Timeless Children. The elephant in the room is Female Doctor as well. I have to say, I'm not giving that an easy one.
If you tied me to the chair and threatened to torture me unless I watched a Jodie or a Shooty episode, I think I'd go Jodie, to be honest.
Would you?
Yep.
Oh,
Which one?
God. He's
which episode it would be? So, what's the one where they're in the storage unit and they get exterminated the whole episode?
Eve of the Daleks, isn't it?
Eve of the Daleks.
Now that what I'll do now, everybody in the thread, this is when I'm really going to make Dan and Drain work. Now this is they're gonna be troubled by this a little bit. I tell you,
I'm feeling a bit green already.
So, well, I'll just get myself ready first. So, yeah, I think in a slide we've all probably done that one. So, can I just show you this bit of news while I just get myself ready for the next bit after that? The moonlit flit of RTD. Did you see this, lads, in Australia? Have you seen this yet?
I did. I saw someone posted that on social media today. I had a look at it.
I'm trying to work out how he fits all this in. But anyway, Russell Davies returns to Channel 4 with a brand new drama, Tiptoe. I used to walk into rooms and go, ta-da! Does that sound like the blooming 15th Doctor? Now I walk on tiptoe in case I get seen. Quotation. The series, populated with a cast of vibrant characters and underscored with Davies' trademark wit and deft humour, yawn, is an urgent yet gripping tale that brings a spotlight on the re-emergence of a threat. I'm trying to think what that is, but don't worry, I know the answer. The answer is on Canal Street in Manchester. Russell Davies says, it's my honour to combine my old home, Channel 4, with my second home, Canal Street. That's the big area, as you know, in Manchester. This is a show I had to write because the world is getting stranger, tougher, and darker. And frankly, the fight is on. Oh, here we go again.
Oh, jeez.
But
the world's getting stranger and darker because they say it is.
I know. I think he needs to get. I mean,
I feel like he's making it stranger and darker, and not anyone else.
Yeah.
I think it's all a matter of perspective, isn't it? I'm thinking of a Doctor Who episode when I said that. It's a matter of how you look at it. Isn't that what the first Doctor said in the Five Doctors or something? It's a matter of how you look at this. Yeah, we can all be, triggered by what's going on in various different ways at the moment. But as a gay man who's about 6 years younger than him, I'm trying to work out where I really don't know why he's going there again. But what I will say, lads, is why didn't he just do this messaging in this sort of adult drama? He didn't have to bring it to Doctor Who, because he said the similar thing for season 1. He said, these are dark times, and so we need an emotional doctor. We need a doctor who's in touch with himself and all. And I'm thinking, I feel as though he's basically saying that every drama he writes from now on has to do this kind of, the world is a dark place. And I have to say to him, he needs to be a big boy, look at history and go, what, is this the only time that's been dark? I mean, we're not even in a Cold War at the moment. We're not at risk of nuclear weapons in the way we felt we were in the 60s and the 80s. We're not in the middle of the Second World War Blitz. I mean, you could just go on. I mean, honestly, grow up, man.
I read this article and it made me think that RTD seems a bit one note when it comes to the things that he writes. Like, apart from Doctor Who, is there anything recently that he's written that's not, like this and has these kind of themes through it? I suppose Years and Years was not directly about this kind of subject matter. What old stuff did he do? Second Coming, Bob and Rose. Was that RTD, Bob and Rose?
Yes. Yeah. He did Years and Years.
Yeah. But all of these other, all these other shows are, that seems to be what he wants to focus on. So, yeah, I agree, Brendan. Go and do that, RTD. Go and make those somewhere else.
So just in case, so people, he's doing a moonlit flit. I'd love to know how he's got the time to do this. I mean, I have to say, lads, should we join the dots a little bit? Season 1, he wrote quite a lot of it, but he was doing back to back. Season 2, it's more 50-50, and he's got these new writers in who we've all talked about. And that's, I'm guessing, when he's written these 5 episodes. Remember, he's also written the Sea Devils 5 episodes with Peter McTighe. So this is, I mean, this man, come on. And remember, he says, I haven't got time to tell you the explanation in 73 yards. I haven't got time for this. I haven't got time for that. And as we all say, it's only in Unleashed he tells us stuff that really should have been in the dialogue. And so you start to wonder, he's too busy. So, for example, it's a 5-part series that follow 2 blokes, Leo and Clive, who live next door to each other. Leo runs a bar on Canal Street. Clive's an electrician with 2 teenage sons. But just as life should be settling down, the world around them is growing more tense. Words become weapons, opinions become radicalized, and gradually 2 neighbors become deadly enemies in a tense suburban thriller which challenges everything we consider to be safe. There you go. So he's writing a thriller. I wish he'd write a thriller for Doctor Who.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
It would be very nice. So he thinks he can do it. Therefore, I'm thinking, I think he's too powerful. He's too rated by the media world. So everybody's grabbing him without maybe asking too many questions. I mean, that synopsis, I don't know. It's as you say, Dwayne, we've kind of been around some of these areas before. Queer as Folk was as dark as it was humorous. Cucumber, I remember watching, and the way one gay man killed another gay man with a golf club was horrific. And so if he says, I want to bring the dark times and I'm sorry, but nothing will shock me more than that, or that poor man having a fit on the floor when there were 2, a gay couple that just were dating, and that Genesis of the Daleks on the telly, and they took a tablet, didn't they, or something happened and it went wrong. If you're going to talk about dark times, I mean, they've always been it. Wasn't the AIDS epidemic a dark time? I mean, what is RTD going on about? Is he just saying that people use hurty wordies?
Yeah, that's the sort of I remember reading an article some months ago where he was talking about how tough and how dangerous and how scary it all is now, and I'm thinking, and I think he was also talking in terms of being gay, and I'm thinking, how can you empirically say that in this day and age? That's not credible.
Yeah. Paul Holgate's guessing the plot because, as you said, Dwayne, there is one note to a lot of this, and we've seen it in Doctor Who as well. So he's writing the guy with 2 sons as a homophobe from the sounds of it. So once again, targeting the straight white male. I know it's only pure speculation, Paul, but yeah, I wonder, because that's a classic, isn't it? But it's very 1984. What I really detest about some writers nowadays and the media, and I'm really honest about this, go and read George Orwell's 1984. It's about the dislocation of the parents from the kids. They tell the kids to spy on the parents and not to be loyal as a family unit. And if you do this writing all the time, I'm sorry, lads. I know I'm the only gay one here, so I'll have watched all this stuff when you didn't need to, if you get my gist. But I remember in the 80s watching a drama where the father and the son didn't get on. One was a bit religious and the son was a closeted gay. It's been done to death. What's new about this? And I'm sorry, but being beaten up and killed and assaulted like classic 70s or 80s, or me being scared when I was backpacking in Oxford Street in 1989, when there'd been a few shootings of gay men on Oxford Street in Sydney. Those were the times I thought were slightly scary, but even then there was a lot of fun. So I'm sorry, I'm not buying into this dark times. What's the word?
I think there was a lot more danger in Oxford Street in 1989 than there is now.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah, I remember going through there on a bus when I was a teenager, and man, there was a hell of a lot of things you would just see and observe that you don't see today. It's very different.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to look, and I know, you know, this is a Doctor Who stream, but this is our Doctor Who showrunner, and he is putting some of these themes in Doctor Who. He does mishits, and then we see him doing a Moonlit Flit. As Lee Smith says, I presume he means trans people. That there's yes, I guess that's what he's doing. They're the latest victims, he's saying. But I equally see an awful lot of, if you're talking about the T in the LGBT, a lot of those people will be on TikTok, will be making YouTube videos, will be out there on marches, and they're very visible. I was very invisible. I was not scared. That's too strong a word. I was just cautious. So the times I was living in when I was younger, I was much more cautious. And I remember it was still, well, it wasn't illegal, but people didn't like gay in the 80s. So I'm quite not sure why this is suddenly much more a darker time, apart from people tweet a lot. I mean, am I missing something, lads? I really don't know. I mean, or does he mean Donald Trump's back? You know the classic, the lefties just get triggered a lot. Cosmic Toyman, what would be new and truly accepting would be to cast or portray a gay character and not mention it. Oh, please. And then you would actually say, what's the point of having, you know, I know. They just are. And nobody has to make a song and dance. Cosmic Toyman, you're so wrong on all this lot. There will be a song. There will be a dance. There'll be everything. I bet you in this drama of 5 episodes, there'll be a reference to pop culture and there'll be a TV episode shown on the screen and stuff like that. He always does that one as well. So our great showrunner has had the time, and remember the criticisms we had of Stephen Moffat when he was doing Sherlock at the same time. He's helped write with Pete McTighe 5 episodes of the Doctor Who spin-off. He's written the bulk of 2 seasons of Doctor Who, and he's also written this in 2.5 years. Quality or quantity? I worry. I really do worry for what's going to be happening, because is he really checking the season 2 scripts? You know, you can get new writers into sci-fi, but who's really checking? Because we don't really even hear who the script editor is anymore. We know there's a name, but we don't really hear how they're not heavyweights like they used to be. Paul Holgate, we just want good, well-written entertainment. Never had a problem with characters or artists from different backgrounds. What I have a problem with is the gender swapping and the race swapping. Yeah. So there you go. Our great showrunner has time. He's got time. And yes, there you go. Another gay drama and another dark gay drama. There you go. So let's cheer ourselves up. There you go, Jane Tranter. Excited, happy, and terrified for this. Hurry up and get it onto our screens, please. And hurrying back to you at Bad Wolf. Oh God, it's like a love-in, isn't it? Look at them. I think they do everything just to try and trigger us after time. I really do. So here's another Vox Pops, lads. Here's a quick question for you. Hailstrom. I was hoping I'd be a lot more excited by Mel's return in the current era, but with such a full unit cast, she's gotten very little time to shine and no time where it feels like her role could have been filled by anyone else. Very disappointing stuff. You know, just like you said, Dwayne, Power of the Doctor brought the classic Doctors back, and that was the nice touch. Is this all we can do now, is bring, say, Mel back or Tegan back or Ace back, and there can be nice touches, but ultimately disappointing? Or do you think... No, it worked.
I think Bonnie Langford worked for the bits that she did. She took what she had and she did some good things with it. And I really appreciate Bonnie. It gave her some moments for her character to shine better than before. But overall, I don't think it added anything to the story. Didn't take anything away, but didn't add anything either.
Yeah. What about you, Dan?
Well, I actually thought, I thought Bonnie Langford was good, but at the end of the day, her appearance wasn't going to save the oh God, I can't even bring myself to say it. It wasn't going to save Empire of Death, was it?
No, I don't. I think you're right. I don't know. I feel as though this is what he's doing. It's like he brings Sutek back just to get the classic fans still ticking over. But a lot of what he's doing is not for us. And I feel as though this sort of thing, for every nice moment with Bonnie Lanford in this case, there's another moment where you're going, oh, God. I mean, can he bring Tegan back without waffling on about Adric? Because they were less bothered about Adric at the time. Now they seem to be very bothered about Adric, it seems to me. I just, it's like one trick. I've got Tegan on. And then the other thing...
To be fair, I'm still trying to work out how Tegan survived End of Power of the Doctor.
Oh, yes, I know that drop. But the other thing is Tegan, Nyssa, and all the stories that people are inventing saying, oh, well, And I'm thinking, oh, this is the trouble. If you bring them back, I don't want a backstory that says, they were always extremely gay, extremely this. No, they weren't. It was in none of the script, and none of us thought it. I can see where they're coming from. Okay, then, lads. I'm going to put you on the spot now. Have you ever played that game, Snog, Marry, Avoid?
Never played it. No.
No. Well, I haven't played it, but it's Valentine's Day, don't you know? So here we go. Snog, Marry, Avoid. Here we go. Right. So the rules are you choose one yes to snog, one to marry, one to avoid. I used to call it Rose River Romana because that was how it worked. Now, because of what we're talking about today, it's Nuwho is 20 years old. So here's the first one, lads. Snog, marry, avoid. What's your choice then? You've got Rose, Donna, and Martha from Nuwho.
Who's going first?
Go on then.
You're going to make me play this, are you?
Okay, I'll snog Rose, avoid Donna, and marry Martha.
Okay. What about you, Joanne?
Exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
You took the words out of my mouth.
You see, there's a one coming that's going to be... You see, we have to be more flexible with our sexuality sometimes when we play these games. I could have a lifetime. Mind you, remember, my second name's Noble, so really I should marry Donna Noble because I'm Brendan Noble. So I think we two are meant for each other. And actually, she's somebody I could hang around with, to be quite honest. And I dare say she wouldn't want to be in bed with me all the time. So that's nice. So out of the other two, I mean, Rose ended up. Did her lips get bigger over the years? She seemed to get bigger and bigger. No, I'm going to snog. I'm going to snog Martha and avoid Rose. There you go. That's my choice for what it's worth. Now the next one, lads, is going to trick you a little bit. Oh dear, we're going to talk about season 12 in a more. So you've got Sarah, Harry, and the Doctor. So now you're gonna have to choose carefully. This is like you being on a minefield now. So what do you reckon, Dan?
You've broken my brain. I can't compute on this.
I'm loving the sound effects. It's
my brain's just going. I can't do this.
You want us to be flexible, but there's just some kinds of flexible you just can't be.
I was really nice to you, lads. I was really nice to you. I got you 3 women then.
Maybe this is why it doesn't work.
What I was doing, I was doing the DEI, and I was going to do one for the lads, one for the women, and one for those of us. I mean, I was going for it, but you failed at the second attempt there.
Can we snog it and marry Sarah and then just avoid the other two?
Yeah, send them back to Nerva Beacon. Sorry, you haven't got the time ring.
I'll flip that transmat and throw away the time ring.
Harry would probably want to be someone you'd want to spend a long time with because he's a very loyal kind of bloke.
Yeah, very nice bromance. We could have a bromance.
Yeah, you could have a bromance with Harry. Marry Sarah? I'm guessing you're going to say, and a quick peck with the fourth Doctor.
Avoid the Doctor.
Well, you see, I'm disappointed with you lads, really, because you weren't thinking this through. You were getting triggered, and I was giving you an out then, because you should have said you wanted to kiss the fourth Doctor because he does that thing with the oxygen to get you all in the zone, like in Terror of the Zygons. That was the answer, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Whatever
absolutely.
fantasy you know.
I thought.
I think we're getting some insights into Brendan here.
I was thinking, well, for every blooming, moment when you lot were seeing Rose snogging Chris Eccleston with the whole time vortex, I mean, do me a favor. Then you've got your little Terror of the Zygons moment. There you go. I mean, it's just, horses for courses, as they say. Well, that's got everybody going. You see, I triggered them. You see, they couldn't be flexible enough. I was thinking like a Doctor Who fan. There's always
I wasn't triggered. I was waiting for Dan.
So I was. Yeah. Should we do this, classmates? What was your answer then, Drain? Of course, yeah. What was your answer then on the season 12 crew?
I told you.
Oh,
I told you. You'd want to spend years and years with Harry, snog Sarah, and avoid the Doctor. If we're doing that.
Okay. Right. So, what have we got next? Well, we are going to turn right into. That's that done. So, here we go. Just want to show you some nice monsters before we move on, because obviously that's another reason why we love our Doctor Who. But let's move into what we've been looking forward to, season 12 retro. So go on, Dan. Your comfort blanket has been on today, and when you look back on only 5 stories, what?
Yeah.
I mean, I almost think it's the perfect season. I really do. For me.
Yeah, I think it's a good season. And then the characters. Sorry, I need to not look at the chat.
Well, Lee Smith. Yeah, I was going to say years ago. Last year, I did do the Rose River one, Snog Marry Avoid with aliens. Have a look. We did do it in the early days, in the early streams. I just thought I'd bring it back to be cheeky. Go on, Dan.
I'm sorry, Brendan. You
had
cannot
to bring
say
it back
that.
with us, didn't you?
I had to bring it back.
You can't say it too fast, Brendan, because when you say it, it sounds like you're saying Snog Marry Avoid. Oh dear.
Go on then. Your lovely season 12 thoughts.
Look, it is. I love Robot. I really it's such a good kickoff in my view. It's not perfect, but the ambition's really cool. And I mean today the characterization and the interplay in Ark in Space is just so good. I mean, considering they're like 5 episodes in, like five half-hour episodes in, and you've really got this dynamic between those characters that feels like they've been together for years.
Yeah. Well, I remember saying when we've talked about this before, Paul Richards, RTD ripped off Ark in Space with Satellite 5. Well, what about Ridley Scott and Aliens and Ark in Space? That's what I was thinking myself.
Yeah.
Dwayne, what are your thoughts on season 12?
Well, do you remember a while back you put a list of seasons up, and season 12, I think, was the one that I said I could do without out of all the Fourth Doctor seasons. But that was a really hard question because they're all so good. But I just picked one that was probably my least favorite at the time. My favorites all change all the time.
Yeah.
I've been watching Revenge of the Cybermen over the last couple of days and really enjoying that, having a bit of a giggle at the cyber leader in that and his very strange accent.
This will be an
which
excellent
is cool.
spectacle.
And looking at all those famous Doctor Who actors under all their masks. You've got David Collings, Kevin Stoney, who's back there, who was in, huge episodes, the invasion and the Daleks' invasion of Earth, but you didn't see his face. But he still had this amazing voice in Revenge of the Cybermen, which was awesome. If there was a weakest story of the season, that would probably be it. But they're all so strong; they're all good, and great location work in the caves in that story too. But because I grew up listening to the edited audio version of Genesis of the Daleks, I was always disappointed when I went back and saw Genesis for the first time, because the cover of Genesis of the Daleks and my imagination made it a lot bigger than it actually was. So it's still fantastic, don't get me wrong. I'm just explaining why I feel that way.
I find it fascinating. We mentioned Innes Lloyd tonight in our Legacy Ladder, and actually his monster season, for example. And actually, if you look at this, you had Sontarans, you had Cybermen, you had Daleks, and Davros as a bonus, to be quite honest. The giant robot. I mean, it was a monster season. So there was a template there set. You've got the narrative arc that Bloomin' RTD adores, which is the Nerva Beacon time ring one. I mean, we've got next week, you'll see we do the Sontaran experiment, because it's 50 years old. Sontaran experiment review, and we do a Kinder review next week. But in our Sontaran experiment review, we say, did it set the template? Because this is the period RTD adores, as I do. You know, that's why he picked Pyramids of Mars and all the rest of it. He went for this era. And I think it had more impact than we realize. I think the two-parter Sontaran experiment set his template for the 45-minute episodes. I do. The trouble is he forgot that the Sontaran experiment is quite dark and quite taut in what happens. And it doesn't have reset buttons and all the rest of it. So, but it does link to a greater arc. So the point is, I think the Sontaran experiment, and John and everybody discussed this in our review, but even what you say could be the slightly weaker one, apparently, out of the 5, might have more legacy than we realize. But I just thought it was clever stuff. I mean, I think we all say, I always, you know, I'm going to try not to mention it today. The language in Genesis of the Daleks, I think, was top notch. Then you look at Ark in Space with its adult concepts. There's 2 to name straight away. And I think that's why something like Revenge of the Cybermen gets a kind of, you know, people sometimes say, oh, it's not as good. And I'm thinking, I love Revenge of the Cybermen. And as you said, Dwayne, the location choices are brilliant. And the last thing I'll say for now on this, lads, is 5 stories, because of that Nerva Beacon clever arc, and because of the outside broadcasts choices, this can't have been the most expensive season if you compared it to season 1 now. So it can be done.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even see the inside of the TARDIS.
No.
For the whole season, you just see the police box, and that's it. You see more of Nerva Beacon than you do. And it's such a genius thing, really, to redress the same set.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, just go, yep, we're now in the future.
It's time. It's time travel. So it was so clever to do that. And yes, it's brilliant for the budget. And yet, and you have a narrative arc at the same time. Fantastic. I mean, what's your call out, though, Dwayne, of these 5 stories? Which one do you think is... You hope that every season has something that stands out. And which one to you do you think, God, that was just... That nailed it. That was Doctor Who to the nth degree. That worked.
Probably out of the 5 stories, probably Ark in Space, because it doesn't have your go-to classic Doctor Who monsters in it. It's the original story out of that, so it doesn't have a regeneration like Robot. So it's out of all of them, it's completely original. Everything in there's new, brand new. So, although the story wasn't new, was it? Because it was reworked. It was a John Lucarotti script originally, wasn't it?
Yes.
That Robert Holmes did. So what a genius job he did on that. Because the original story's not much like what we got on screen in the end, which I guess is why John Lucarotti's name's taken off it. But fantastic stuff.
if I have to be consistent with, I'll say that sometimes something RTD did in 2005 has set a seed that actually spoilt something. Could you argue the same with Genesis of the Daleks and say, actually, it's an origin story for Davros, and for every great Davros moment we enjoyed over the years, it set us up for the cyber controller RTD version. It set us up for talking about origin stories. I mean, is that the curse? For every good story and idea in the past, another showrunner later on will go, well, if they did it, I'm going to do it. And therefore you think, oh God, I don't know if it's...
Well, it's okay if they do it well. Like Stephen, I don't know if many people agree, but I really like what Stephen Moffat did with Davros, turning him into the boy in the Magician's not nephew, apprentice.
Yeah.
Wrong story, Magician's nephew. But yeah, I really like it when I thought that was done really well.
Right up until they pulled Davros out of the chair.
Yeah, that was a little bit silly in a Monty Python kind of way, but yeah, there were like, even though there were silly bits in there, I liked that. I thought that was something that was done well, and it sort of took Davros back to an earlier time.
I agree. The premise of that was good. But yeah, I was with it, and having all the different types of Daleks right up until they had Capaldi playing Dodgems in Davros's life support system.
Yes. But and also his eye opened, and that I like that. I don't understand that. Right, I'm looking at the original Davros there, as is Scottish Davros. I'll call you out. Good to see you. The introduction, as he says, of his favorite character, Scottish Davros.
This is the best Davros, categorically.
But if we really look at his right, that's the original Davros. How can that blue light bit suddenly, be? And look at his eyes. He's lost his eyes, hasn't he? I mean, what the hell's going on here? How come his eyes open? I didn't get that. I thought, why are we doing this? So now Davros has grown legs. Now Davros has got his eyes back. I mean, he looked as though he was really on the end of it in Genesis. You thought, oh God, he's this emaciated, person. And now you get him, he's got legs, he's got this, he's got that. You thought, oh, here we go.
Well, to be fair, he did get exterminated at point blank range, and then spent 100 years like regenerating himself in a dungeon in a down underground until the Doctor just rocks up again and bang, he's back.
Well, thank God.
Then he used the cells in his body to repopulate the Dalek race at one point.
Yes. And
wasn't much of him left.
He pulled out of his life support system and left on the ground with his guts missing.
Oh God! So David Harding, was it the regeneration energy that the Doctor passed to him? Paul Richards, the Doctor shouldn't be able to use regeneration. Paul Richards, what has happened? It's Tinkerbell dust. It's become stupid. It really is pathetic. But when you see Genesis of the Daleks, can you still forget that later on he's going to have him walking and talking and doing a song and dance routine, no doubt?
Yes,
very easily.
I can.
I feel as though it's a time machine. I know what's coming. Paul thinks Genesis is hands down the best, followed by Ark in Space. Right? Discuss. Let's argue. No. David Hardin, the Beacon set was too good and likely expensive to not appear again. It was genius. Roger Murray Lynch, who, as you know, did go on to Hollywood, but just to do that little curve, it's a simple little trick. And he obviously really understood, what you do with the camera to actually say, well, if you have a straight one, you have to put a mirror at the end or something, don't you? You have to do a different trick or a CSO trick to make the corridor look longer. Instead, curve it and have a few light bulbs in the distance or something. Simon, Key to Time was a story arc in classic Who, as well as the Black Guardian trilogy. I found the Black Guardian trilogy a bore. Oh God, you're right. I'm going to die. The thread's going to kill me. But I don't know. I can't see it. I mean, God, as a kid, this was a stunning. You got the giant robot, which I actually really loved that one. because it was units, it was setting us up, it set the team up, and then off you go. And then we went to do a great space adventure. And I think a lot of people say season 12 is Philip Hinchcliffe. I know Barry Letts had set most of it up, but you know, this whole idea that the Philip Hinchcliffe era was desperate to just get out into the stars again. And this was the big release. So, of course, Ark in Space, and a really interesting plot and gruesome. I mean, as a kid, all you needed is that dialogue saying that it's got in there and it's maybe eaten one of them. You think, oh my God. And I think the Sontaran experiment, as we said in our review, is fascinating because it's so dark and sadistic. It's very Second World War, experimentation. It's horrible. I don't know. I just think it had such a range and such exciting world building going on. I think it was a really strong season. And I really, by saying that, Dwayne, I'm worried that Chris Chibnall, as you know, in his first season said, let's go forward. And I respect that. Whereas, did we like this season 12 because it went backwards in a way? It was just the monsters. It pleased us. It gave us what we wanted.
Not sure on that one. Because I saw this season retrospectively. I didn't see it in order. So I went back to it. So a lot of the Tom Baker series I saw further on, first of all. So this was not seeing the Fourth Doctor for the first time. So I didn't have that experience, no.
Okay. What about Dan? I mean, do you see what I mean? How season 12, I love it. I love every beat of it. But
yeah, I mean, it kind of unfairly gets cheapened because people go, oh yeah, they just brought the Daleks and the Cybermen back for the new Doctor because it was safe. But we've seen in modern Who that bringing those things back doesn't guarantee success. These were good stories in their own right.
Yeah, it's a story. Yeah, you're right. It's the story that did it. It could have just
been
characters. Yeah, it could have been a two Doctors Sontaran story or one of the Flux Sontarans. It could have been. I know. I'm thinking of a.
Still with Revenge of the Cybermen though, I still never quite understood Kellner. It's like he's a good guy, but he's it's okay to just slaughter the entire crew of the Nuwho Beacon. Doesn't make sense to me.
He was a mercenary, but he was paid by. He was going for the gold, see, and Vorus was in charge of the gold. So that's what he. That's what
it feels like there could have been.
Cybermen didn't have the gold.
It seems like an overcomplicated plan to sit there and assassinate the entire crew of Nuwho Beacon through the use of a cybermat.
You see, I didn't know about.
I love picking at all the stories.
I don't think I knew about cybermats when Revenge of the Cybermen was on, and so that cliffhanger shocked me to see this other type of thing. And of course, it didn't look like the cybermats of the 60s, of course, either. But it was wow. I just like when Drain was saying earlier, I can see, I know where I am when that cliffhanger happened, and the excitement at something like that. I mean, it really is on the edge regarding, whoa, Sarah's in real trouble. And actually, when she was acting out, having that space plague on her, it was a simple effect, wasn't it? That kind of, the way it made the veins kind of shine. And it worked for me. I thought, oh my God. And she was breathing heavily. And as you know, you thought, oh God, she's in real trouble. And I had a lot of severe asthma as a kid and bronchial pneumonia and was in hospital a lot with lung collapse and that. So that breathing thing really registered with me. And I remember I found that really, oh God, she's really ill, I think. So I think ultimately, Dwayne, what I seem to be thinking when it comes to season 12 is we've had quite a few episodes of the Shooty Doctor, and RTD has failed on one thing, which is to establish the Doctor, whereas season 12... with every story, Tom Baker is established and strengthened.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Can I just say on Revenge of the Cybermen, though?
Yeah.
I was I was disappointed when I eventually saw it because I knew the Cybermen were in it. And that was one aspect that disappointed me because they didn't look like the Cybermen of the 60s, Cybermats of the 60s.
Yes.
So that was one little aspect of that. But, apart from that, it was fine. I love the music too in that.
Yes.
The music was great. Kerry Blyton.
Yes. No.
Did three stories. You remember the other two?
Yeah. Seeds of Doom. No. Terror of Zygons.
No, you're thinking Jeffrey Bergen for those two.
Yeah, who's also good. Go on.
So Kerry did Death to the Daleks.
Oh yes.
And he also did the Silurians.
Of course, and you can tell with some of the percussion they used.
Yeah.
Yes, very. It's not experimental. It's not a slight. Yes, very interesting use. Yes, very interesting use. Of course, it makes sense because Death of the Daleks is a fascinating soundtrack as well. Yes, and a good old sacrifice.
There's the stick going.
Yes. Yeah. And just like, is it a vuvuzela? What is it for the Silurians? You had that little sound. Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas Dudley Simpson, Dudley Simpson and the arrival of Davros coming in that room. I mean, if the music was different and just that clash of a cymbal, it sounds like to me when a Dalek comes into a room. I mean, honestly, this is just, it's beautiful, really. It's so simple, but clever in how it's done. I love the Dalek sequences in Genesis, which were rare, really. Just the clash of the cymbal and that metal, and that really works. And I know with Nuwho, with the Daleks, we have choirs and, oh God, we have the whole blooming lot. Budget. But I just think, can we clash some cymbals or whatever it is? And it really just works. I think we've overcomplicated what makes it scary for kids.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what I liked about Segan Akinola, actually. His music was a bit more subdued.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I mean, I can't do music, obviously, vocally, but just the music from Dudley Simpson when his hand hovers to pull a switch. It's like, it's brilliant. The music when the Sontaran takes his helmet off. It's like, whoa. And that's all you need. I think they've just overcomplicated it and forgotten what they're trying to do. They're trying to do all things to all men.
I still think the mask, the Wisher mask, and I mean the Wisher performance was superior, and it just is. But the mask in shadow there, the way the light hits it, it looks more sinister than the Molloy and even the Nuwho Davros.
It's almost. I always thought it was like a living corpse. I really did. I found it quite horrifying. I wish I could really touch base with that moment when Sarah scrambled to the ruin and saw him for the first time, and you got the clash of that cymbal, because it was a quick pan, wasn't it, to Davros, and that voice, move left, move right. And I remember, I think my heart was in my blooming. It was like, what? Because you could see the orbs in the base and you thought, well, he's kind of Dalekish. And then that voice was Dalekish. And it was like, whoa, what's this? And I tell you what, that was off the scale. It really was. And I can't think of another character in Doctor Who that has had that visceral effect on me. It was just, he's Dalek, but he's not. What's this? And yeah. Shadows, a ruin, Sarah acting her heart out. I mean, come on. Now, I'll have to give Scottish Davros a moment. You have to have a world-class team behind the stories to do it justice. I think we've said, the stories are phenomenal. And then we've got one of the most famous, well, actually, we've got a few famous moments in season 12. Let's be honest. We've got the Ark in Space speech, humanity, and then we've got Do I Have the Right? I mean, if you were judging seasons on, well, when are the moments? Because, with Nuwho, sometimes people say, did Jodie Whittaker get given a moment to be the Doctor? And that's not her fault. That's the writing. Whereas in the first season, he gets 2 phenomenal moments, doesn't he, Tom Baker?
A standout moment for me is, I think it might be the cliffhanger to episode 2 of Robot, where the Doctor's going to visit Professor Kettlewell,
Oh,
and then he gets locked in the house, and the robot just appears. And that cliffhanger always stood out to me for some reason. Love that one.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Is that when it's battering around and he has to
Yeah,
dive around?
yeah.
He throws ball bearings under it.
Yeah, and he's using his scarf and all the rest of it, and being very. Honestly, for every praise I give, I'm going, yeah, I know you got away with by doing it the same again. It's like full circle. The Marshmen coming out of the water is basically the Sea Devils coming out of the water. I get it, but he takes his helmet off for the second time in 2 seasons, and it's like, yeah, that's all they have to do. And I still think Doctor Who is quite simple in its format, in how you could make it effective.
Do you think this is the best Sontaran?
No.
Which one is the original for you?
It is the Time Warrior.
Yeah.
But I know there's a reason. Kevin Lindsay and his breathing, and it was difficult, wasn't it? They changed the whole mouth, and they shouldn't. He still did the tongue and all the rest of it. But we discussed this in the Sontaran Experiment review. We do compare the two and links to Steyer. And I know if you could protect the actor inside, I still think you need the Time Warrior mask. So there's that one.
So something else interesting about this season 2 is the Target novelizations, because Ian Marter did the Ark in Space. Did he do the Ark in Space?
He did the Sontaran Experiment, definitely.
I know he did the Sontaran Experiment. Yeah. Or was the Ark in Space actually Philip Hinchcliffe?
No.
No, Hinchcliffe did Mask of Mandragora, didn't he? So I think Ian Marter did the Ark in Space and the Sontaran Experiment. And his Target novels were always fantastic. Lots more detail.
Yes.
There's actually, in the Target novelization, which I read first, I think there's a scene inside the TARDIS. So it's, you don't ever see Harry in the TARDIS on screen, which is a shame. But in the books, you did see him. So that was a bit of a surprise when I saw the Ark in Space for the first time, that you didn't get that TARDIS inside the TARDIS scene.
Do you think another way, maybe by accident, that season 12 works is the TARDIS team are almost emulating the original TARDIS team in one way, which is they weren't sure if the new Doctor was going to be older or not. So the Harry Sullivan was already lined up, I think, wasn't he?
You're right.
Yeah, to be the Inchester.
He was the action man.
Yeah.
Yep.
So just like William Hartnell's Doctor and Ian Chesterton were sometimes testy with each other, with suspicion and who's doing what. I loved in season 12, and I loved the way the Doctor treats Harry and even Sarah. There's a nice bit of tension between the three of them that make them interesting.
Was it Fulton Mackay that Barry Letts was thinking of for the fourth Doctor?
That was one of them, yeah.
I love Fulton Mackay, but I'm kind of glad they didn't go with him, that's for sure, after what we ended up with.
Yes.
Definitely made the right choice.
What did Sarah say? Are you all hair and curls and eyes and everything? It's just
all teeth and curls.
That's it. Yep. That's it. These moments just so cleverly done. They make that set look really big. And they didn't use that set for Revenge of the Cybermen, so it wasn't like they were doing it for budget reasons either. You don't get that room, do you? So anyway, season 12, I think, set a few things in place that unfortunately can be copied and then done badly if you're a bad writer. I think it emulates some elements of 63. I think it emulates the monster season of Innes Lloyd, and carries it off. And they're not all bases under siege either. And that is a beautiful, just like we say, the Robots of Death are amazing designs. This design has, you could say even in some ways it's stereotypical, but it's beautiful. I love that robot. It's beautiful. And when, I'm sure you've seen it, haven't you? Have you seen it in for real? I've been to the exhibition. I know it's touring the world now, but it's monstrous. I love that. Absolutely love it. I've got the toy as well, of course.
Yeah, perfect for merchandising that design.
Yeah, and it's the only toy from the 1970s Doctor Who range that is actually still pristine, because I think partly because of how it is, whereas the Cybermen, that material on the thing has all the sheens come off. So I'm sorry about this, lads, but as soon as we get to this point, having talked about beautiful season 12, I just want to remind you that we're coming up in the next week or two to 20 years of New Who. And what do you really think New Who's given us after just talking about season 12? Because as you're thinking for a second, I will show you. These were voted for in the Doctor Who TV website. These are the 20 worst New Who stories according to the votes. So as I just flick through them, you might be able to think about what's new. I mean, this is obviously a negative version. This is the top 20 worst ones. So Rogue was voted as the worst story of New Who, and I suppose in history of Doctor Who. And then we've got the Doctor and the Wardrobe. Yeah, I still don't know what that's about in the end. I've never watched it since. The Empire of Death is up there. So you see, season 1 scoring badly. The Ghost Monument of Jodie's. Sleep No More. Once Upon a
Not
Time.
as bad as you think.
Yes, and you've said that, haven't you? You've said that Sleep No More needs another look.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have to take you up on that and actually follow it through. But are you disagreeing?
Someone said they wanted Reece Shearsmith in Doctor Who. There he is.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah, that's very true. So is this... I agree with these worst ones, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I do think season 1... If it was supposed to do a season 12 and establish a new Doctor, it basically established a lot of the stories that will be in the bottom 20 of history. Once Upon a Time. Yeah. Survivors. You see the Flux, this hodgepodge of stuff.
Which one is it? What's number 1? Do you want to put money before we get there? What do you think the worst one is ever? It's only on New Who, is it?
It seems to, yeah, it's New Who.
Oh, I would have thought that one was up there.
Can you hear me?
No, In the Forest of the Night.
Yeah. Well, they see, look, there's another season 1. I mean, that's appalling, isn't it? Timeless Children is not number 1. Everybody with bated breath here.
It's Praxis. Or
did we skip a few?
Well, here we go. We're getting closer. Oh God! You see, DEI. What was all this about? A man having a baby. I know it's sci-fi, but do me a favor.
What's that one with the stupid
the
where he's sucking his thumb?
Oh, that's Praxis, isn't it?
Oh, that's
plastic.
Orphan 55.
Orphan 55.
Orphan 55.
That's it.
That's got to be up here.
Well, he's number 3. As you know, we got told later Chibnall said he only did 1 draft.
That was boring. It wasn't the worst.
Here we go. Legend of the Sea Devils. And then, of course...
Oh, we got a massive delay on Aaron.
Have you? Orphan 55.
Okay. What was 2 and 3?
2 and 3.
That is pretty bad.
No, number 3 is the Battle of Ransko Av Kolos, blah blah blather, and then you've got Legend of the Sea Devils number 2, and then you've got number 1 Orphan 55.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
So Darko
Legend of the Sea Devils was bad.
So Darko, there's another show in this, isn't it? I can't make the lads do another hour on this, but I'm just saying it will remind them of maybe some of the perils of New Who. I'm aware with the time left that we might say, well, the shout out to the positives, but it shows you where.
Well, do you want to give you some?
Yeah, go on then.
Here's the big positive that New Who gave me, having been so disappointed when it was cancelled. Not even knowing it, whether it was cancelled or not for years after, living through the wilderness years and then it coming back and then, still being involved with fandom right up till when it came back on TV, to see it reach such popularity in terms of a general audience,
Yeah.
and people talking about it. I felt vindicated, like, yes, because even when I was at school, when it was on TV in the 80s, it still
Yeah.
wasn't that looked upon or regarded very highly. When it became that popular, it's high around the end of David Tennant, I thought, yes, there is something good about my show. But at the same
Especially
time,
when
I was also
girls
thinking,
like it.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, all the girls love David Tennant, so it was it was good for
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I felt a level of vindication, and I was seeing all the merchandise in all the shops, and it was just every shop that you go to, there'd be some Doctor Who stuff in there. It was a great time. It was great to see it so popular.
Yes, and I don't think I'd ever seen that, and we're not seeing it now, are we? I mean, and it's such a. It
No,
doesn't
no, it's
need to
gone.
have.
Gone
It
now.
doesn't. It doesn't need to have that feeling, but it was very nice, wasn't it? It was just to go, gosh. I mean, yes. I mean, that's why I showed the Chris Eccleston trailer earlier, because of course it was that moment. And what was interesting, you mentioned David Tennant. All the women fancy David Tennant. It was funny because when I was in my school when this all happened, it was Chris Eccleston that the women were going on about. I think it was because suddenly there was a doctor you were allowed to fancy. I don't think women ever said, "Oh, I like that Edwardian garb." Oh, I like, well, all of a sudden you had a doctor who was gritty and authentic, I think is what some women were saying. And I do remember senior staff in my school talking about Chris Eccleston like they had the hots for him. And I thought, I've never seen this about Doctor Who before. Wow. And that was interesting. And yes, then they got Casanova next. So yeah, that's where we went, wasn't it? And then, of course,
Latoya Wilcox did say that she would have gone off anywhere with John Pertwee in that documentary. Do you remember that?
she did. The 30 years in the TARDIS, that was, wasn't it?
30 years in the TARDIS. She said, "Oh, that velvet jacket, I would have gone anywhere with him."
She also said she liked the PVC of those Daleks in the 60s.
That's right. And the Cybermen, yeah.
She said a lot of things. No, she was good fun. Best thing about Nuwho is it got the classic DVD range completed and then led to the Blu-ray collection, says Paul Holgate. Well, yeah, I mean, you need money, don't you? You need investment. You need them to think it's worthwhile. So yeah, it's interesting, and we will talk about Nuwho one other time. It's not quite 20 years yet, but I just thought, well, since we're talking about 50 years of season 12, 50 years, lads. Sadako Davison might be the one classic Doctor Who was heartthrob material. I think it takes all sorts. I don't. Yeah.
I think Pertwee was very. I think Pertwee might have turned a few heads too.
Yes, I'm sure you've seen some.
If you've ever seen Department S or Jason King, that was kind of the style. Yeah,
I think
girls with daddy issues.
There is a Doctor Who documentary, and you'll have seen it. It's on some of the range or something, where a fashion designer in Britain talks about she had a thing for John Pertwee. Yeah, and it was the outfits and all the rest of it. And yeah, I think it was exactly what you said. Boomer Doug, who's still with us. I'm so torn about Nuwho. Initially, I hated the idea of a skinhead doctor in a leather jacket, but he won me over. I still think Tennant overacts, but I was so glad our show briefly became cool.
Yeah.
And then it was gone again. Yeah. Then the coolness ended. So see, Jodie Whittaker was pretty average looking as the Doctor, but I thought she was pretty attractive in Broadchurch. To be honest, they picked a female doctor and they almost dressed her in almost an androgynous way. I thought it was very strange. Very,
I must admit,
she's attractive. She's pretty.
Yeah.
Especially in that one with Peter O'Toole.
It's just a shame she's. Yes, she's an attractive woman, but she shouldn't have been doing that. What is it, Doctor? I don't know why she had to do that David Tennant thing. That's all.
Yeah.
I know she was trying to be a bit of a geeky doctor, wasn't she? She was trying to be David Tennant as a woman. I think that's what happened.
That's the question. Why was it okay for all the girls to go gaga over Tennant?
Yeah.
But then when Jodie came along, it would have been un-PC to do that.
Yeah, and it is wrong. It is wrong.
I always thought Moffat had it right with Curse of the Fatal Death, with the Joanna Lumley doctor.
Lumley.
I thought, she could have nailed that.
Well, and yeah, he had that naughty joke. It wasn't he wasn't talking about her chest. She had orbs, or what was it? There was something.
Dalek bumps.
That's it.
Beam like
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Well, Stephanie Barrett is putting us right. Davidson was a heartthrob, especially after All Creatures Great and Small. We'll take your word for it there. Takes all sorts. I know a lot of women at school went mad about Matt Smith as well. They liked the kind of the geek chic. They liked the kind of, the fact that he was a bit out there and a bit different. So I think that's that. So we've done the rounds, lads, and that's your Valentine's Day, and your other halves are very pleased that they have lost you for 2 hours. Sorry about that.
2.5.
2.5. I know. I bet she's counting. No. So Dwayne. Thank you. And what's coming up on your good old side? I know you've got your visits soon as well, but you've got your Sirens of Audio broadcast as well.
Couple of weeks, we've got Janet Fielding in Canberra, and then we've got Matthew Waterhouse in Adelaide, Melbourne, and Sydney towards the end of March. And websites underneath me, sirensofaudio.com for more info. And yeah, the podcast is coming out. Probably in the next couple of days, we'll put out some footage from our time with Sylvester as well, so that'll come out shortly.
Yeah. Okay.
Just a recap
busy.
of that.
Very busy. Oh, look, I showed you my Lonleat photographs, but the point is, you are imminently about to meet some Doctor Who cast, and that I'm always envious of that. We talk about touching Doctor Who and touching nostalgia, and well, you're about to, and that, brilliant. So see, it's funny how the female fans want a male doctor to be attractive, but as much as I'm against a female doctor, I would prefer a female doctor to be unattractive in order to make them take them more seriously. Yeah.
You see, I don't know if I agree with that, because I think Missy is attractive, and I take her seriously. She's seriously mad and takes that role, extremely well. Plays that well.
She plays that.
But I think she's attractive.
Yeah, she plays that cliffhanger with Capaldi, at the Cybermen one, and he doesn't know she's the master, and she pulls that face. She plays each beat of that dialogue. Really interesting. I loved it. Mind you, Capaldi and her are really good together, aren't they? I thought that was a good duo. Okay, folks, it's the end of that one, but it's not the end of Sense for you today, because as you know, at Detox at 7 p.m. and Sunday at 6 p.m. And then I'm not going to be live. I'll be on holiday for a week, but you will have...
Having a life.
I'm having a life. It's shocking. So next week, everybody, look out for Sontaran Experiment and Kinder reviews. Look out for my interesting chat with Hugh about mental health and representation of lunacy and madness in Doctor Who.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah. And then we've got Simon Anthony, who, as you know, was a video engineer at the BBC and worked on 5 Doctors, Kinder, 4 to Doomsday, amongst others. And he also dabbled with the colorization of Terror of the Autons and Ambassadors of Death in the 80s. And listen to what he says about the BBC lack of interest then. So hopefully some interesting things while I'm away. So I'm not really away. But thanks, lads, for joining us today on Valentine's Day and sharing the love of Doctor Who. We won't be live next week, but hopefully the week after, okay? So thanks, everybody in the Sensphere classroom, and we'll see everybody soon. Okay, good night, lads.
See ya.